if I had to be another person to stand up, if I think after really going through this and looking at the files and looking at the case, if I really feel that Karen Read didn't do this and I have to be a voice that stands up and helps, I will.
We're expecting to learn more about the allegations against the girlfriend of a Boston police officer who was found unresponsive in the snow Saturday morning. I-Team sources say Karen Read was in a relationship with John O'Keefe. She's facing charges including motor vehicle homicide and manslaughter.
We're the only ones fighting for the truth of what happened to John O'Keefe. And me and my family and my attorneys and my team have marshaled every resource to get to the truth. It just feels like no one else wants it.
Now, just be clear, you didn't do it.
We know who did it, Steve. We know. And we know who spearheaded this cover-up. You all know.
Yes, we do.
And no, she didn't do it. No, she didn't do it. This is an innocent woman. She didn't do it.
I tried to save his life.
Yeah.
I tried to save his life at 6 in the morning. I was covered in his blood. I was the only one trying to save his life.
Why'd you admit to it?
She didn't admit to it. She didn't admit to anything close to that. Nothing close to that. And you should know that.
That was like 3 or 4 times she admitted to it.
No, she didn't.
That's not true.
She asked a question. She asked a question, which is very different. She didn't admit to anything.
I'm going to tell you one thing. Karen Read's not going to fold. Karen Read's not going to give up. Defense team's not going to quit. The Free Karen Read movement is going to continue. We will continue to raise funds for her. We will continue to do standouts across Massachusetts, across the nation, across the world to let everybody know what's going on here in the state of Massachusetts, the corruption. And we will continue to get the word out there. Believe me. Believe me. All right. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome back to Let's Talk Live here in the LTL Media Channel. It's Friday evening. It's March 28th, 2025. And welcome in this evening. So, oh boy, we are what? How many days away? How many days away are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days away. Let's see. Oh, I just lost my screen. Hang on. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days away, considering today the 5th day, 4 days away from the start of jury selection in the Karen Read 2.0 trial. And it has been a whirlwind of information over the last couple of weeks, motions, non-motions, hearings left and right. I mean, it's so hard to keep track of everything. There was a hearing today regarding communications, and Hank Brennan once again gets shut down. So all good stuff there. But I want to kind of address a few things and just talk a little bit here before we get into tonight's program. And what I want to do is go back and watch, because you were so close to the trial, I want to go back and watch David Yannetti's opening statement and Alan Jackson's closing argument tonight, and just look at some things and say, are there things that were missed? Are there things that could have been added in? And I want you all in the chat tonight to participate during that. And, we'll pull up the chats as we go through this. I'm just curious to see and hear what your take is on this. But before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the last 24 to 48 hours, because it's been a little weird for me. And, there's a lot of chatter on the internet, and there were people taking shots at my mods. And I want to just clear the air with all of this, because it's going to get very interesting, I think, in the YouTube, Facebook, Twitter sphere space. There is going to be a mountain of people covering this case, and they should. The more, the better. Any positive light that we can shine on Karen Read is such a good thing, because we know that the mainstream media is not portraying Karen as this person that did not commit this crime. I mean, every docuseries that we have watched has made Karen look like she's this vicious, evil killer, and looks past all of the framing that has happened to her in this case. I mean, it's so obvious. I mean, even if you don't believe that there's a framing, there's so much reasonable doubt there of just what we talked about on the show the other night with Mark Betterow and my good friend Todd McGee. the evidence, just even the evidence collection or the non-evidence collection or whatever you want to call it, just the way that everything has been processed in this. It's so hard to see that a jury would sit there and say, yeah, like 70% of the jury was like, Karen Read did this when they first went into that deliberation room. Think about that. How do you look past that? How do you look past everything that the defense has talked about? So I definitely think that the defense's strategy is going to be much different this time around. And I don't want to say like I'm excited to see what they're going to do, but yeah, I think I'm very curious. I'm very curious how this is going to work. How this is going to all come out this time around. But anyway, let me get into a couple of things here. And I hate kind of doing all this stuff, but once in a while you have to do it. Kind of set the record straight on a bunch of stuff and kind of sort through all of the crap that's out there in the atmosphere, in the ether. So let me start by saying this. So the other night I had attorney Mark Betterow on, and I had retired Mass State Police Todd McGee on my show. And it was one of the biggest shows that I have done here as far as live chat, probably ever. It was a great show. We had over 5,000 people watching, and it was a treat. It was really a treat to see that and see the interest here that night. And it was just so great to watch the both of them shine in their respective positions and experience and hear what they had to give back and give back to the audience. And I thought it was just a great overall show. I was very nervous going into the show, but it was just a great overall show at the end. I was very happy with it. So anyway, we had the show, and the next day, Mark Betterow released a statement on X and just basically said, like, I'm going to, in a nutshell, I'm no longer going to appear on shows that involve, donations and super chats. I just don't feel good about it. And that's what I want to do. Completely respected. I respect it all the way. And I went, oh my God, I hope I didn't do something to make Mark mad. So, and I've had permission I've talked to Mark since then. I've had permission to talk about this. So reached out to him. Hey, I just hope that I didn't offend you or anything went on. He said, that is not the case. That is absolutely not the case. This is something that I've been considering for quite a while. And, after, like he said, in his post, after some deep reflection, I'm just choosing not to do this anymore. And he said, there's nothing against you. We are still friends. I'll still come on your show. And I said, perfect. I would love to have you back, and I will turn off my donations. I don't care. I want his expertise here if he ever decides to come back to LTL and hang out with us. So we cleared the air on that. Well, in that stream, in that text stream, there was a lot of people that jumped in there and started saying, basically like, I'm a piece of shit and my content sucks, and how much money did you make off that? And it was just kind of ridiculous. I mean, I think the people that have been here for a very long time know my track record, know what the reason of my platform is, what I've been doing in all of these things that we cover. I give back to my community. That's why I built this platform, to do something right by my community. I might not be the best creator. I might not be the funniest. I might not be, whatever it may be, but there's a reason that you all come here and hang out, and I appreciate that. So let's see. So there's a lot of people that were, kind of killing me in the text stream. And be honest with you, I went to work. I ignored it. I didn't really care. And I had some really nice people that reached out to me and said, hey, like, we support you and we're pissed off. And, I'm going to get in the stream and fight back. And I just basically said, it is what it is. And there was one person in the stream that was like, oh, you probably made all this money and you didn't, and you only donated 10% and all this. And I was like, all right, well, let me back this up for you. So before even the statement was made by Mark Betterow, before even that, if you watch the stream, which I know the trolls did, okay, because they were commenting on, oh God, I wanted to watch Mark Betterow so bad, but I had to fucking sit through that guy, and LTL is so terrible and this and that, but you end up watching the show. But if you watched all the way to the end, what I did at the end of the stream is I made an announcement and said, you know what? With the super chats that came in, I'm going to donate $100 to Karen Read's Defense Fund. So we made a $100 donation that night. That was on Wednesday. When I turned the show off, there actually was a subscriber that emailed me and was upset that their comment wasn't read. And I said to them, I'm sorry. And why don't you do this? Provide me with your PayPal, provide me with your Venmo, provide me with your Cash App, whatever way you get paid, I will pay you back your $20 donation. I don't have a problem doing that. I never heard back from that person, but I'm going to say this. If you're watching my show tonight, I will make good on that. Just reach back out to me the way that you emailed me the other night, and I will pay you $20 back. No problem doing that. Not at all. I have no problem doing that. So what am I trying to say here? There's a lot to sort through. So that happened, and I kind of felt I kind of battled with some people in the chat. There was one person in particular that was in that stream that was like, oh, you only gave 10% back and this and that. And I went, okay, really? So I literally went back through a year's worth of receipts of donations that I've donated to Karen Read's Defense Fund. I screenshot a shit ton of them. I threw it up on there. I threw a picture of the billboard from Enrique Delgado Garcia that we raised and made 2 billboards that made that possible through this channel. So it's not like I'm taking that fucking money and running out and buying clothes and sneakers and flying all over the place and like I'm doing something good with it, you know, like, and I understand people can do whatever they want with their money. If you want to go buy shoes and clothes and a new car, that is your business to do that. I choose to do what I choose to do here to give back to people that need it, that we can use that money to raise some awareness, because at the end of the day, this is my theory about YouTube. If you come into YouTube with the intention that you want to make a shit ton of money, it's the wrong intention. You got to play the long game in this. And I inspire my friends and guests to come on here to, what am I looking for? The word. To grow this channel, to get it out to a bigger audience, to have those conversations, and get new subscribers that will come into this content and say, hey, you know, maybe this channel has something to offer that I like. Okay. I got a bunch of stuff and texting going on. Hang on one second. Okay. So anyway, I felt, and bear with me, I'll get to the chat here in a minute. So I felt compelled to make a statement today. Okay. So, anyway, let me just finish this. So we donated $100 at the end of the Betterow stream. I made that donation. Thursday night, I'm on with Mike supporting Mazza Media's stream that he had set up, the Karen Read fundraiser stream. And I went on the panel, and it was during that panel, I think it was Mark Betterow released the statement. A lot of people were talking about in the chat. We wanted to keep people focused. So I went in, and after some time, I said, you know what? We were talking about, please click the link. Let's get some money for Karen. And I went, you know what? I'm going to donate $100 right now. That's $200. $200 in 24 hours. That stream went through, and it was funny because Deanna was on the panel, and I said, someone match me. She goes, I'll match you. And I was like, fucking awesome. And then there was a couple of people in the chat like, I'm going to match Brian too. So that was a fun thing that we did, right? So donated the $100. We had a couple people that matched. We had a lot of fun with it. The very end of the stream, when Mike kind of lets his guests off the show, and he kind of does his little closing monologue, I'm trying to get to Karen's website quick. And he's like, oh, I'd love to get to 815,000. And I said, well, how far away are we? We're like $300 away. Okay. So I dial it up, hit the 300. I'm like, Mike, don't go off air yet. Refresh the page. We're at 815,000. We got there. I was so happy. Made the donation, got it there. So that's $493 that I donated back to Karen Read's defense fund in 48 hours. Okay. So people started coming at me. Once Mark posted a statement and said, oh, you probably made all this fucking money and fuck you and this and that. And they're just kind of piling on me and saying my content sucks and whatever. So I felt compelled I had to make a statement and I had to say something here. And I usually don't like to do this stuff because I've learned kind of over the time that it doesn't, I mean, what is it going to really do at this point? And, I used to do a lot of this in the past and kind of stopped. So if you haven't seen it, I'll read it to you. I'll show the receipts and then we're going to move on from this. So I just said, hey, friends, over the past 20 to 48 hours, I've heard a lot of chatter about chat donations during my recent stream with Mr. Better and Mr. McGee. Some people have suggested it was a cash grab. So I don't want to take I want to take a moment to clear up and provide full transparency. The estimated revenue from that stream, the Bettero stream and McGee stream, was $428. And I provide the screenshot. However, in spirit of supporting a good cause, I donated $493 to Karen Read's defense fund over the past 48 hours before all this chatter started. And I provided a screenshot. So that left me with a negative profit of $64. So additionally, I received a complaint that a $20 super chat was not read during a stream. In response, I immediately offered a refund to that subscriber, but unfortunately never returned my email, and my offer still stands, and I'm more than happy to resolve the situation if they come forward. Yes, my platform does generate revenue. Absolutely. I've been very transparent about this. It costs me $1,000 a month to have what I have here, $1,000 a month. If I make $1,000 a month, I'm happy. I can keep LTL door open. I can come to the studio anytime I want in the month and do whatever I want. This is my creative space to do this. My rent and my cable. That's all I have to worry about here. I have heat. I have air conditioning. I have electricity. That's it. So let me go on here a little bit. So I said, and I can't speak for others as with a platform, but it's entirely up to individual as creators, how they choose to use their money and support whatever cause they choose to do, if at all. If that's your living and you make your living off YouTube, great for you. Whatever you want to do with it, that's your money. When chatter like this happens, I believe it's crucial to be transparent about these matters, ensure everyone knows where the portions of their donations are going at times. Thank you for understanding and continued support. Now let's get back to freeing Karen Read. So here it is, $428. And someone thought it's funny. I don't know. So I posted up the receipt. Estimated revenue, $428. Okay. And I posted up all my receipts for the donations that I made. Okay. So I like transparency. I like to be transparent with my audience. And I like to just get things out of the way. Now I want to go back because there was some dogpiling on one of my moderators, Lauren DC. I'm going to clear all this up for everybody, okay? Let me talk about super chats, okay? Now, the purpose of a super chat is to highlight something. It is an importance. It is something that someone is paying you because they want their comment brought to the top of the chat. During that live stream, I had 4,800 viewers on YouTube. And I did say before that stream, so if you want to throw this on me, hey, Lauren, if you want to remind people in the chat, because the fucking chat's going to go 9 million miles an hour, if they want their chat highlighted, they could super chat. I'll bring it up. I have no problem doing that. So don't dogpile on her. I was the one that said that. Come at me about it. Okay. So we put an end to that. So I think all of what I'm trying to get at here is, listen, there's a lot of people that are committing themselves and have committed to themselves for a very long time on either a platform or boots on the ground, or if they're just watching the content and they're commenting, if you're donating in some way, in a positive light, supporting Karen Read, you're all good in my book. There may be some people that I don't get along with. There may be some people that fucking hate me, whatever it may be. Okay. But I all look at you as supporters. If you're doing something positive for Karen, you're okay in my book. You're okay in my book. And I think it's bad that you would be part of a movement. And these are people that are part of the movement that were dogpiling on me, which was kind of funny. Why would you do that? But if you're part of a collective movement, you know what? You might not like someone. You might, don't care for their content, whatever it may be. But the common purpose is, and this is my summarization of all this, is that we're all here for a collective reason. Okay. The biggest reason, and it ain't about you. It fucking ain't certainly about me. It ain't about anybody else in all of this. All that matters is that Karen Read goes into that courtroom in a couple of days and starts fucking, which is so annoying. She's going to have to go through this entire process again, waste all this money because the Commonwealth is a fucking hard on for Karen Read right now, and have to go through this ridiculous process. But if we're all here to collectively support her in the end, that's all that matters. All that matters is Karen Read. That's it. That's it. The end of the day, she goes through this process with her attorneys and gets out of that courtroom acquitted, walks out and tries to go on with her life. That's the bigger picture here, people. So I've said it a million times before. If you can make a standout, if you can support people on these streams, if you can go out and make a donation, if you could stand out on the sidewalk and make a sign and just say free Karen Read, that's all that matters in this. That's it. At the end of the day. So if you want to sit here and dogpile on the people that are helping, then you don't fucking need to be here. You don't fucking need to be here. Seriously, you don't need to be here. And there are plenty of people that are out here that are supporting the good individuals in this movement. And believe me, there are a lot of them. And they're going to fucking call you out. But the funny thing about this is, I know these are people that hide behind an X account with a bullshit picture that probably stand next to me at a fucking standout or outside the courthouse that wouldn't have 1 fucking cent of any balls in their pants. If you're a woman, you don't have that. But you wouldn't have the balls to stand there and say anything to my face. And you know where I am. You know where I can be found. And I encourage it. If you have an issue, come up to me. Let's solve it. Let's solve it. I'm out there all the time. Let's solve it. Write me an email. Let's have a conversation. But I guess that's really how I wanted to summarize all of this. That's it. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about supporting Karen Read and supporting the Reads, supporting her attorneys, and getting her through this process. If you don't want to be positive in this, all I got to say is get the fuck out. If you're in this for fame and fucking fortune and all this other stuff, get out. It's not needed. It's not needed. Just go out there and support in a positive way. Embrace the people that are around you. Even if you don't like them, just fucking smile and wave, because everybody is a part of this. And there's been a lot of people that have been in this from the beginning. And I did a show the other night, and thank God that Turtle Boy wrote that blog, that article on April 18th, 2023, and let the world know about what's going on here in Norfolk County. Because if it wasn't for that article, I fucking sure as hell wouldn't be here. You all in this chat fucking wouldn't be here. No one would be here. And this trial would be completely different for Karen Read. She'd be on her own. She'd be on her own. Her family would be on her own. Her attorneys would be on their own. They'd be fighting this battle by themselves. And we need all of you. And we need to keep this positive when we go down there, wherever we can figure out where we can stand. But now is not the time to fight and dogpile and person against person and creator against creator. This is not the time to do it, people. We need to hold this thing together. We're not even fucking into the trial yet. We're not even there yet. But, you know, let's chill and cool and be cool with each other. And that's all I ask for. So I want to just share something really nice, because I know that Meredith has been going through a lot over these last couple of days and week. And my condolences go to her. She tragically lost her uncle in Boston to a drunk driver. And it's terrible. And this person that is drinking and driving has a long litany of history of drinking and driving, and should ultimately face the ultimate consequences in all of this, and should be in jail for the rest of their life. And this person has got so many dumb chances from what I've been reading and hearing. But I want to just read something that she posted, and I thought it was really cool. And I'm going to share that with you, and then we're going to go on with the program here. So let me just bring this up. And I'll read through some of this really quick. And she messaged me today. She said she felt horrible. She felt like she needed to say something, which was really kind. And she's a great person. I've always had really great interactions with her when I've been around her. And I think she's a great person, and she's such a perfect match for Aiden. And they always look great together when they're walking up to court, and when they're out together. So anyway, she's kind of came in on this text thread, and I'll read some of this for you. She says, "I'm well," and we know where that came from. I'm just here to say it's since almost everyone, and she's kind of feeling the same thing. You know, like, we need to be together here. What are we doing? Everyone seems to be piling on Brian. A lot of these comments are making me sad. And believe me, this is not a woe is me thing, okay? I'm a fucking adult enough to handle all of this. But I think it's nice when, friends step up for friends, and they have each other's backs, and they say things to support them. So you don't have to like everyone who covers Karen Read, but you don't have to publicly disparage them just like they're not your cup of tea, especially like someone who's Brian, who's seriously nice and raised a lot of money for Karen and Aiden. I get it. Free speech and all. But just because you can say something doesn't mean you should. Just like anything on the internet, you can turn it off and just keep scrolling. If you don't like Brian or any of the creators for that matter, you can just not watch their show without announcing it, unless it's insane, unless it's an insane grifter that needs to be called out. What you are getting out of this hate on someone who else helps Karen Read's cause. Why not choose kindness, especially those fighting the same common goal? We have enough lunatics on the other side of this fight to save your negative energy for. Further, as Mark said himself, his decision had nothing to do with Brian or a specific YouTuber. So I don't really get why this is here to blame it on Brian. Even if you're not a BLT fan, I don't understand why people are getting fired up over his mod's super chat comment. This literally is what Aiden does with Turtle Chats. And he does. If you want your chat read out loud to the class, you can Turtle Chat me and I'll read it. And he even says it. I think he says it's got to be like $10 and above. I think that's his rule. He's like, I'm not going to read a $5 donation. This is literally what Aiden does with his Turtle Chat. Send a Turtle Chat and your message or question will be read out loud. It's been a long week. What'd she say? Excuse me. Let's see. In chat, a question out loud. It's been a long week, and I'm sure I'll get a lot of crap for this, but the number of adults on here getting their jollies from raging on Brian and his mod makes me sad. And she says free BLT, which is a great hashtag. And Aiden, thank you so much. At the end of that, puts the classic free BLT. So thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And I appreciate Meredith as well. And I don't know. I guess I had to get all this out and get the record straight. Once in a while, we have to do these. And again, my message to everybody is we got a long way to go. We got a long way to go, and we don't need this shit starting right now. I know where I stand in this. I know the people that support and back me. I know the people I'm good with. I know what I do. So I don't have to keep explaining all this. I don't have to keep explaining it. I'm kind of done explaining it. These are people that don't care to watch, and that's fine. But before you're going to make a comment or cast whatever you want to cast onto me, make sure you're really paying attention, because there's a lot of things that I do that you don't know about. And I'll even share this, and I'm sure Mark Mazzamedia won't mind me saying this. And dude, you're missed. Seriously missed if you're watching right now. Mark has been to my studio multiple times. Okay. Mark has been to my studio multiple times. I'll turn my fan off. And every time I'm around him, even if we're not here at the studio and we're hanging out together, that guy never pays for a meal, because he drives here and he comes to hang out in my studio, and we'll do a show and I'll take him to lunch, or I'll buy him lunch when I'm out. And I do this too. Usually if he has a show the next day, I'll drop in his chat and I'll throw him a super chat. And I do that for people that come to my show. And there's many, many other things that I do behind the scenes that y'all don't know about. Guests on my show, how I take care of them or what I do. And that's just me. That's just me. So anyway, I hope that cleared some of the air for everybody. Kind of done and sick of talking about it. And we're going to move on, because as Auntie Bev would say, we got Karen Reed's the free, and we got a lot of work to do. So I want to get into the show tonight and talk about Karen Reed's defense team opening statement and closing argument. And I want to go through those. And I want this to be a very interactive chat. Are there things that you think could have been brought up, or do you think there are things that it could have been different? And again, we're not lawyers, but we can, add our opinion in here. And please, as we're rolling through the footage tonight and we're reviewing this, feel free to throw something in the chat. I'll bring it up. And I'd love to hear your perspective and your opinion on this. So I know a couple of chats came through. I'm going to look at those really quick, and then we'll move on here. Beach Life, look at this, member for 15 months, says, we support you. I really appreciate your membership. Thank you so much for being here and being part of this channel. Marianne, $5, says, people are evil. You're an amazing human and selfless. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Mary. Thank you for being a subscriber and being part of this community here. Amber, new member. Thank you so much for joining the membership. Joanna, new member. Thank you for joining. We have Sassy, Sassy Vice 420. Thank you for becoming a new member. And I just did a members only the other night. So all the new members, you have access to that content now. Go check out all my members only content. Members only, what we do is very relaxed and laid back. I kind of open up the chat for the members. And if there's anything that you want to ask or talk about, we can do that. So that's kind of what I do on those. What the Duck, $50, just to piss everyone off. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really do. Lori, a member for 7 months. She says, free Karen Reed. Absolutely. We got a long way to go here. Oblivious Benson, $10. Thank you so much. Says, hi, I'm just a dipshit, but listen here, Bri Guy. You are out there pressing people's status nothingness at the barbershop for Enrique. You ain't in the wrong here. Go easy on yourself. You're good. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, let's get to the show. Let's get to David Yannetti. Let's listen to that fucking awesome opening statement that's so powerful. And gosh, does Yannetti open? All right, I'm going to ask the chat. Does Yannetti open in Karen Reed 2.0? Because there's a new trial. It's a new trial, Mr. Jackson. Does David Yannetti do the opening statement, and does he open with Karen Reed was framed? If you think he does, all right, we'll do a poll. I just saw someone do poll. All right, let's do it. Does Yannetti open with the same opening statement in 2.0? Let me do a poll. Give me a second here. All right, let me just throw a poll up here. All right, let's do a poll. Does David open with Karen Reed was All right, polls open. I just kept it simple. Does David open with oh, he's not doing the opening. Oh no. All right, well, let's just say this. In the opening, did they open with Karen Read as framed? We'll do that instead. We'll do that instead. All right, he's not opening. Okay, let's just take David out of it, and we'll just say, whoever's doing the opening, do they open with the strong statement Karen Read was framed? Okay. All right, we're going to start this. Brilliant opening. Powerful. Bam.
Karen Read was framed.
Boom.
Her car never struck John O'Keefe. She did not cause his death. And that means that somebody else did. You will learn that it was no accident that John O'Keefe was found dead on the front lawn of 34 Fairview Road in Canton on January 29th of 2022. You will learn that at that address lived a well-known and well-connected law enforcement family in Canton, the Alberts. Because the Alberts were involved, and because they had close connections to the investigators in this case, Karen Read was framed for a murder she did not commit.
So I'm going to say this. I think the opening is going to be completely different. And I think when we talked about this with Bettero the other night and Todd McGee, I think the words that need to be said a lot is reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt. And here's how, and here's why. And here's why. And here's why. Reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt. I said attack the evidence. Attack the way it was collected. Go after that. Show the mishandled reports. Showed the fucked up videos. Showed the video that was cut. Showed the tampering of the taillight. Show how multiple pieces of this taillight get spread over, days, weeks. That's where you want to go. Michael Proctor, show his intentions in this. The non-investigation. That's where they need to go with this. That's where they need to go.
Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. As I previously told you, my name is David Yannetti. I'm an attorney with an office in Boston. Together with attorneys Alan Jackson and Elizabeth Little, it is truly my privilege and my honor to represent Karen Read during this trial. From a very early juncture in this case.
Judith, thank you so much for the 20. She said donate and subscribe to the show, supporting you. Thank you so much for the 20 on Venmo. I'm going to get to this as well, too. Just saw a members chat come up. Sandra, thank you so much for being a member for 11 months. She said, Brian, you're a person of high integrity. Keep doing what you're doing, and I'm a proud member of LTL Media. Thank you so, so much. Thank you for your membership, and thank you for being here tonight. All right, let's go.
You will question the Commonwealth's theory of the case. You will question the quality of the Commonwealth's evidence. You will question the veracity of the Commonwealth's witnesses. And you will question their shoddy and biased investigation, a faulty investigation that led to Karen Read sitting here today. You will learn, in short, that the police did no real investigation of this case, and you will question why.
And that's powerful. That is powerful. Police officers involved in this did not investigate properly. They got to hammer all this shit home. And I talked about it. And I talked about it the other night, and I've been talking about it. I go back to that O.J. Simpson documentary on Netflix, the most recent one that was released, and I thought it was great and brilliant. But what that defense team said, what do we have of totality here that we can use to go after? And they went to that crime scene investigation team, and they showed all the inconsistencies and all the things that they did wrong in collecting all that evidence from Nicole Brown's house. Not wearing gloves, not storing it in proper containers, tainting the evidence because they weren't wearing gloves or wearing or using proper containers. That is all things that I think they should use and go after and attack it, attack the evidence.
You will question why the investigators had such tunnel vision. You will question why they focused solely on Karen Read,
Yes.
someone with no ties to the Canton Police Department, as opposed to the well-known and well-connected Albert family of Canton, a family that was never treated as suspects by the investigators in this case.
It's going to bump this time.
Boston police officer John O'Keefe was found mortally injured on Brian Albert's front lawn. His body was in full view and almost right below Brian Albert's bedroom window on his front lawn.
Wow, look at this
He was found
one.
wearing only
This one. I like this. Laura, $2 says he should open with Officer John O'Keefe was not hit by a car. That's great too. Love that. Ah, yeah. Wait for us, right? So good. Yep. Pinning on the girl, Michael Proctor. And I love that everybody's not saying Trooper Michael Proctor anymore. Love it. All right, here we go.
one sneaker. You'll learn that Brian Albert was a Boston police officer as well, and that he was a trained first responder. Brian Albert was notified that another police officer was injured and unresponsive on his front lawn, and Brian Albert did nothing. His sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe, and other civilians were on his property that morning after John O'Keefe's body was found. Police, EMTs, firefighters, police cruisers, an ambulance, fire truck, lights flashing, and first responder Brian Albert never came out of his house. Equally important for you will be the fact that the lead homicide investigators never went inside the Albert home that night. You'll learn that Brian Albert's brother, Kevin Albert, is a Canton police officer.
That's fact.
It was obvious very early on that the Canton police should not be investigating the death of a man found on the property of the brother of a Canton police officer.
Facts.
So it was decided just about from the start that the Massachusetts State Police should take complete control of this investigation because the Canton police were conflicted out. Now, that sounded good at the time, but you'll learn that two major problems arose. First, despite the fact that they obviously had a conflict of interest, the evidence will show that the Canton police still had their hands in this investigation. You will find it astounding. But Canton police officer Kevin Albert, the reason for the conflict of interest in the first place, was continually updated about the status of this investigation while it was going on. Second, and equally troubling, is that the lead state police detective who was assigned to this case was a man named Michael Proctor. Michael Proctor, you will learn, is one of the many people in Canton with deep ties to the Albert family. Michael Proctor's own mother referred.
Let's get to this, Sue. Thank you so much. $5 super chat says have the defense the step-by-step the waterfall video with Higgins and Albert and how Higgy had motive for killing John. Yeah, we may hear about that. I mean, we know about the third-party culprit. We know the people that were named in third-party culprit. We know that they're going to have someone testify that Brian Albert hit police officers, was drunk and a drinker. So they're going to have someone testify to that. This is going to get wild. I'm telling you, it's going to get really, really wild. All right, let's go.
Refers to the Alberts as the Proctor's second family. His own sister's wedding, Michael Proctor was in the wedding party with Colin Albert, and he sat at the head table of that wedding with members of the Albert family. That's the man who was chosen to lead the investigation into the suspicious death on the property of Brian Albert. That's the man who gave updates to Canton police officer Kevin Albert while the state police were supposed to be investigating what had occurred at his brother Brian Albert's house. You'll learn that right from the jump, Michael Proctor predetermined the outcome of this case.
Lamus Luz, thank you so much. $5, moderator, fantastic friend. We always talk outside the courthouse when she sneaks up. She says, Newton laws of physics apply in Canton. Those laws prove that John was not struck by Karen Read's SUV. That right now is literally the super chat of the night. I love that one. That one right now is the super chat of the night. That's really well said. Good stuff. I love that one. I'm going to keep it up on the screen for a little while here.
Never stepped foot inside the Albert home on January 29th, 2022. Never checked out whether there were any signs of struggle inside that home. He never called for crime scene technicians and other specialists to look for blood or other trace evidence within the home. He never asked Brian Albert for permission to go in the home and take a look around. Michael Proctor never applied for a search warrant to go in that home. Instead, he focused immediately and exclusively on Karen Read, the outsider. You will learn that no one in the Proctor family has ever called the Read family their second family. No one in the Proctor family had been in a wedding party with anyone from the Read family. Karen Read was a convenient outsider. She was most definitely not from Canada. So how did Michael Proctor feel about her? How did he treat somebody he was investigating at a point in time when he should have been keeping an open mind, focusing on obtaining all possible evidence so that he didn't miss anything? Well, you will learn that on the very day that John O'Keefe was found dead on Brian Albert's lawn, Michael Proctor was texting with his high school buddies about this supposedly secret investigation using his personal cell phone. He was revealing information about this investigation to his friends, assuming that nobody would ever find out what he was doing and what he was saying. And he was revealing his true thoughts about Karen Read to his friends, not what he put in his sanitized police reports, his true feelings to his friends whom he trusted, and in text messages that he never thought would come
The
into.
timeline is so well done. Yanetti's hitting all the points and how this all unfolded. And I love the flow. The confidence is there. He came out. I love the pause. He's got his hands on the podium. And I love how he looked at the jury for, a couple of moments before he started. He waited for kind of the tone of the courtroom to quiet and then just came out. Karen Read was framed. I love it. And I love this tone and tenure that he's using right now.
The hands of the defense in this case. Lead investigator for Michael Proctor, right from the start, called Karen Read names he would reserve only for your worst enemies. He told his friends that he hoped that she would kill herself. He told his friends that he had seized her cell phone. And you will learn that he knew he shouldn't have been accessing any content on her cell phone because he knew there would likely be attorney-client communications on between Karen and me at that time. He knew that he was supposed to wait for a search warrant or other permission from a judge in order to go through that phone. But you'll learn that he went through the phone anyway, without permission. And you'll know that he did because he told his high school buddies that he was searching her phone for nude photos of Karen.
Yeah, there you go.
And he was disappointed he hadn't found any yet. That is the professional and unbiased investigator who's chosen
Great.
to lead
I
the
like this.
investigation into the
Look at this one. I love this chat. Opening should explain in great detail exactly what reasonable doubt means. I love that. I think that is going to be a focus. I think Mark Bettero the other night on the channel kind of contested to that as well. Hammer that home. Hammer reasonable doubt home. Get it in the jury's minds. Let them know what it means. I love that. Love it, love it, love it.
The death of John O'Keefe. You will learn that one of Michael Proctor's high school friends commented to him that with a dead body on the front lawn, the homeowner in this case is surely going to catch a lot of grief. And do you know what Michael Proctor's response to that was? One word. Nope. And he explained why. Michael Proctor assured his buddies that the homeowner would not catch a lot of grief because, quote, the homeowner's a Boston cop too, end quote. That one sentence, ladies and gentlemen, in Michael Proctor's own words, will explain a lot to you about how this investigation was conducted. You will be able to evaluate whether Trooper Michael Proctor treated Brian Albert and his family differently because of who they are and their relationships between his family and theirs. You will evaluate whether this investigation was on the up and up. You will decide, as a result, how valuable or worthless the prosecution's DNA evidence is or is not, in light of who controlled that evidence. You will learn that Michael Proctor's fingerprints are figuratively all over this case. His fingerprints are all over the Commonwealth's evidence. You will learn that Michael Proctor showed up at Karen Read's parents' house in Dighton to interview her during the afternoon of January 29th, only hours after John O'Keefe's body was found dead on Brian Albert's front lawn. You'll learn that Michael Proctor had her Lexus SUV towed from her parents' home. But you'll also learn that he wrote a search warrant in which he falsified the time that he took that SUV. He swore under oath that the vehicle wasn't towed until 5:30 p.m. But you'll learn that we obtained surveillance footage that he didn't know we would get. And that surveillance footage exposed that Michael Proctor's words in that sworn affidavit were a lie. Michael Proctor had that vehicle for about 90 minutes before he claimed to have taken it. And folks, you will learn that the timing is important, very important. Because when John O'Keefe was first found on Brian Albert's front lawn, the police thoroughly searched that yard for potential evidence. And it wasn't just one officer, or two, or three. There were at least 4 officers that searched that front lawn. And that morning was the beginning of a snowstorm, but there wasn't yet much snow on the ground when they were searching that morning. It was light out by the time they did the search, and it was getting lighter. And during that thorough search of Brian Albert's front lawn, the number of pieces of taillight that were found by a minimum of 4 officers looking for evidence was 0. It was only later in the day, when the snow was really starting to accumulate, that the police miraculously started to find pieces of taillight on the property.
I always love watching Liza during when the other attorneys speak, and I always noticed her in the opening statement and the closing argument. She's very observant of the jury. I'm sure she's taking notes. I'm sure she passes those notes off, obviously, to the other attorneys, and she's always very observant. It's probably her job. Watch the jury. She's the closest to him.
The police only started to find pieces of taillight after Michael Proctor had seized Karen Reed's car. They only started to find pieces of taillight after Michael Proctor had possession of her taillight.
Kaylee, thank you so much for the $5 on Venmo. She said, thanks for all that you do for the movement. Free Karen Reed. Don't let the others get you down. Never, ever, ever. And she said, coffee on me. Thank you so much. Never, ever, ever, ever. I ain't going anywhere. We're going to be here into the end. We're going to see this come through to completion and watch that young lady right there on screen walk out of that courtroom acquitted.
You'll learn that Trooper Michael Proctor then kept going back to the Albert residence after that day, and he claims to have kept finding pieces of taillight on multiple occasions on multiple different days. And in addition, a good week after John O'Keefe's death, Canton Police Chief Kenneth Berkowitz, an older officer on the brink of retirement with probably not the best eyesight, he supposedly was happened to be driving past Brian Albert's house. And by the way, Brian Albert is someone with whom Chief Berkowitz is also good friends. And this older man allegedly spotted yet another piece of taillight from his moving vehicle. This was yet another piece of taillight that was somehow missed by the trained specialist who had previously and thoroughly searched the property. Another piece of taillight that Proctor supposedly missed in the many times he went back to the property. Michael Proctor claims that he kept finding pieces of taillight right up until February 18th of 2022, which was nearly 3 weeks after John O'Keefe was found dead on Brian Albert's home. You will learn that there is no competent evidence that Karen Reed's taillight shattered at Brian Albert's property in the early morning hours of January 29th of 2022. To the contrary, you'll learn that when Karen left John at Brian Albert's house, she drove back to John's house on Meadows Ave across town in Canton. At John's home, where he lived with his 2 adopted children, Karen was drifting in and out of sleep, but she woke up for good in a panic sometime around 4 a.m. because John hadn't come home. And that was not like him at all. He had never done that before. Karen had a sinking feeling.
Oh, it is Bali. In Bali. Look at this.
Something was seriously
in Bali. Wow. You're lucky. Wow.
wrong. So she got back into her Lexus and she backed up out of the garage to leave the driveway. And when she did, the right rear taillight of her Lexus struck John's parked vehicle in the driveway and her taillight cracked. That was the same taillight that the prosecution now claims was broken outside the Albert residence hours earlier at 12:30 a.m. But we have video evidence that the taillight was actually broken at 5 a.m., many hours after the prosecution needs that taillight to have been broken. There is, of course, no video of the taillight being broken at Brian Albert's house. You will eventually conclude that that's because the taillight was not broken there. Importantly, you will learn that there was an eyewitness who arrived at 34 Fairview after Karen got there with John O'Keefe in the early morning hours of January 29th. And that eyewitness, Brian Nagel, who's the brother of Julie Nagel, who was at the after-hours party that night. He had a clear view of Karen's SUV. Ryan Nagel confirms that there was no damage to her taillight at that time. Karen was sitting in the driver's seat with her hands at 10 and 2. And Ryan Nagel confirms that while Karen was inside.
Now, do we think Ryan Nagel's story changes this time around? Does he say, nah, I didn't see anything? You think his story is going to change this time around? Let me know in the chat. Will Ryan Nagel's story change this time?
The car, John O'Keefe was not. John O'Keefe
Thank
was
you,
also
Mary.
not outside the car at that time. You will ultimately conclude there's only one other place he could have been. Now, going back to that 5 a.m.
Thank you,
video
Sandy.
from John's driveway, you will see Karen back up her Lexus and strike John's car at about 5 a.m. when she was leaving John's house.
That's
Go out
true.
to look for him. And you will
Guns Glitter, it's a good point. It says, no, I don't think he wants any heat with the feds. Everybody's saying, nope, they think it's going to be the same. 10 and 2. But remember, it's a new trial, Mr. Jackson. Remember, it's a new trial, Mr. Jackson. Well, they'll get him. Yeah, it's all documented. They'll recall it. Right. Yeah, you're not going to slip out of that one. It's a new trial, Mr. Jackson.
know that she struck his car at 5 a.m. because you will watch that video closely. You will witness that the wheels and the hubcaps on John's car are jostled and moved by Karen's SUV. And you will conclude that that video depicts exactly when Karen's taillight was cracked, long after she dropped off John that night at 34th Avenue. And you will learn that part of the reason that Karen's Lexus hit John's car was that Karen was panicked at that time. Where is John? Why didn't he come home? What happened to him? And you will learn that she was racking her brain for what possibly could have happened. And like many of us, was worried about the worst. Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? That was what she was saying, both to herself and to other people later that morning when she went back to 34th Fairview. She couldn't think of anything else that made sense. She certainly didn't consider in a million years that someone from within the Albert home could have beaten up John and left him to die on the front lawn. Now, that was over 2 years ago.
Oh, no, Jody.
Karen didn't know then what you will learn during this trial.
Jody and I go way
Karen
back.
didn't know that Brian Albert's sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe, left the after-hours party at Brian Albert's house sometime after Karen pulled away. She didn't know that after Jennifer McCabe dropped off some people elsewhere, she returned to her own home. Karen didn't know that Jennifer McCabe climbed some stairs in her home and eventually made it into her bedroom with her cell phone. Karen didn't know that Jennifer McCabe settled in at 2:27 in the morning on January 29, 2022, and typed a Google search that she would later delete. 2:27 in the morning was over 3 hours before John O'Keefe's body was found on Brian Albert's lawn. 2:27 was over 3 hours before anyone knew or suspected that John O'Keefe was missing or hurt or in trouble. And at 2:27 in the morning, you will learn that with no one watching her, thinking she was alone with her thoughts,
Yes.
not worrying
Awesome.
that anyone would know. what
Thanks
she
for the
was doing,
kink. I think he meant
Jennifer
link.
McCabe typed in the following Google search: how long to die in the cold? Now, she misspelled the first word, so the actual search was "how long to die in the cold," but you'll get the point. You will ask yourself, why would somebody Google how long does it take for someone to die in the cold, unless that person knew someone who either was in that situation or would be in that situation? You will question during this trial, who was it who actually did die in the cold at some point that night, sometime after Jen McCabe was asking Google for an answer to her question. And you'll learn that the answer to that question was John O'Keefe. The medical examiner in this case will testify that one of the causes of John O'Keefe's death was hypothermia. John O'Keefe died in part
Alan.
because he was left to die in the cold. Now, the Commonwealth will try to dispute the timing of that Google search. They'll try to claim that there were only 2 Google searches at 6:23 and 6:24 a.m. after John's body was found. But one problem for the Commonwealth will be that we have retained Richard Green, one of the leading computer forensic experts in the country. Rick Green has forensically analyzed Jennifer McCabe's phone, both manually and using every appropriate type of computer software to solve this issue. Rick Green will confirm for you that Jennifer McCabe did indeed make that search at 2:27 a.m. And another problem for the Commonwealth is that you will hear and see other evidence that will confirm that Jennifer McCabe is lying when she denies making that call.
I can't wait to see the video of Higgins at the Canton PD at like what 1:32 p.m. a.m. Talking on his phone. Who are you talking to? What's that about?
Search.
I can't wait until that.
You will conclude that before she went to bed, if she went to bed that night, Jennifer
I
McCabe
agree.
wanted to know just how long it would take for someone to die in the cold. And a big question in this trial for you will be, when was John O'Keefe left to die in the cold? I expect the Commonwealth will try to persuade you that he was left there sometime around 12:30 a.m. because they're going to try to prove to you that Karen Reed hit him and that his body stayed there the entire night until first responders arrived at 6 a.m. and his body was taken to the hospital. But you will learn that there are big problems with the Commonwealth's theory of this case. You will learn that there were 6 people at that after-hours party at Brian Albert's house, all of whom left by the front door and would have been confronted by John O'Keefe's lifeless body on that lawn if he was actually there at that time. Those 6 people walked out the front door to 34 Fairview, walked to their cars, either in the driveway or parked in front of the house. Brian Albert's sister-in-law, Jennifer McCabe, was there. Her husband, Matthew McCabe, was there. ATF federal agent Brian Higgins was there, who was also Brian Albert's friend. Sarah Levinson, a friend of Brian Albert Jr., was there. Julie Nagel, another friend of Brian Albert Jr., was there. And Caitlin Albert, Brian Albert's daughter, was also there. All of them leaving the residence. Each of those people left 34 Fairview in Canton, where Brian Albert lived. Each of them walked out facing the front lawn, where the
Good point, Erica. I want to see if Brian was wearing the same clothes there. Yes.
Commonwealth will tell you that a 6'2", nearly 220-pound big man in dark clothing was sprawled on the front lawn when there was only a
I think it was Albert.
Snow on the ground. He was supposedly sprawled on that lawn, just feet from where these people were walking when they left the residence. And you will learn that not one of these people saw John O'Keefe laying. Not one. And you know who else saw no one laying outside in the early morning hours of January 29th? The snowplow driver in charge of plowing the street for the city of Canton. And this is another big problem for the Commonwealth. You will learn that Michael Proctor, here's that name again, wrote a report where he claimed that the DPW supervisor had told him that Fairview Road had not been plowed that night. Proctor's total investigation on this issue consisted of one phone call and no follow-up. He just submitted his report that simply said the road hadn't been plowed that night, perhaps thinking that no one else would follow up either. But you'll learn that when it came to finding out the truth, it's not that Proctor couldn't find the truth, it's that he wouldn't. But fortunately, you'll learn that we would, and we did. You'll learn that within weeks after January 29th, we sent our investigator, a former Medford police officer named Paul Makowski, to the Canton DPW to try to get to the bottom of this. Paul Makowski talked to the same supervisor at the DPW, a man named Michael Trotta, whom Proctor claimed had told him that the street hadn't been plowed.
It's the PI.
You'll learn that Paul Makowski found out that Michael Proctor was not telling the truth. You'll learn that Michael Trotta from the DPW told Paul Makowski, our investigator, that the street was indeed plowed that night, and that the name of the plow driver was Brian Loughran. So Paul Makowski tracked down Brian Loughran. He asked Mr. Loughran if the state police or any investigators had ever spoken to him. And the answer came back, no. You will then learn what Brian Loughran had to say about what he saw and didn't see that night, and you will be shocked. Brian Loughran told Paul Makowski that he was driving a big snowplow in Canton that night. You'll learn that the nickname for it at the DPW was Frankenstein because it had a lot of spare parts and it had been around forever. Brian Loughran.
Coffee Cake, $5. We'll take a pause here for a second. Coffee Cake, $5 says, did anyone see the image of the dog bite attack of the Bachelor Sean Lowe? It looks just like John O'Keefe's sweatshirt. Yes, I did see that. It was floating around. It was floating around the internet. I did see that. And if I can just do this before we hit the video, go back to the video, y'all can just smash that like button. It's free to do that. That'll help get this out to the stream out there in the evil YouTube algorithm. All right, let's keep playing through here.
And told Paul Makowski that when he plows the streets of Canton in Frankenstein, he's very careful. He makes sure to check not only the roads in front of him, but also the yards to the side of his plow. He makes sure not to hit a fire hydrant or a tree or an animal, or heaven forbid, a person lying in the snow. He's always on the lookout. You'll learn that Brian Loughran passed by 34 Fairview in his plow, traveling right by Brian Albert's front lawn at 2:30 in the morning. You'll learn that Brian Loughran confirms that at about 2:30, when he went by that house, John O'Keefe was not on that front lawn. So you'll learn that about 2 hours after the Commonwealth claims that Karen Read somehow incapacitated John O'Keefe, an eyewitness confirms that not only could it not have happened, but it didn't happen. But you'll learn that Brian Laughlin also provides some other troubling testimony for the Commonwealth. You'll learn that after making that pass at 2:30 in the morning and seeing no body, he showed up again at the entrance to Fairview Road, intending to make another pass down it with his plow. This time, however, at about 3:30 in the morning, he looked down the street
3:30.
and he
Love
saw that parked right next to Brian Albert's front lawn, right in the very area where John O'Keefe's body was later found at 6 a.m., Brian Laughlin saw a Ford Edge parked on the side of the road.
Yeah, you know what's kind of funny? Did we all forget about that? Because we haven't heard about that in a long time. I mean, I know we know about it, but I'm saying like we kind of like you don't really hear about that anymore. You don't really hear about that anymore. I know it's a detail, it's there, but there's so much stuff that happens, and I haven't really heard that. That hasn't been brought up in any of the recent hearings, correct? Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's things that come out and then come back, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
You will learn that the police have done zero investigation to discover whose Ford Edge that was. You'll learn that members of the Albert family drove Ford Edges. You'll learn that the police to this day claim not to know who was parked right next to the area where John O'Keefe's body was later found. You'll learn that while investigators on this case, including Michael Prock, completely ignored the snowplow driver who went right by the Albert residence, the defense not only tracked him down and interviewed him, but the plow driver actually took our investigator on a ride back past the residence to explain the precise route that he had taken on January 29th. You'll learn that some other curious things were going on in the early morning hours of January 29th. Curious things that the police in this case utterly failed to investigate. For example, after people left the after-hours party at Brian Albert's house on January 29th, Brian Albert claimed that he had no contact with anyone but his wife until he was woken up in the morning. But you will learn that he was ultimately confronted by the fact that his phone records revealed that he had actually placed a phone call to ATF agent Brian Higgins, his friend, the same friend who had been at his house earlier that night. And that was at 2:22 in the morning. You'll learn that Brian Higgins called him back 17 seconds later, and they connected 22 seconds on their cell phones. You'll be asked to consider just how long 22 seconds is and what could be said and discussed during that long of a phone call. You will consider that phone call in the context of the other curious things that were going on during the early morning hours of January 29th. You will learn about the following in chronological order.
Let's do it. Let's do an experiment. How long does 22 seconds feel? All right, let's do this. Let's pause and just do this really quick. Ready? This is 22 seconds. It's a hell of a long conversation. That's a hell of a long conversation.
2:12 a.m., Jennifer McCabe arrives at her home. 2:22 a.m., Brian Albert calls Brian Higgins. 2:22 a.m., 17 seconds later, Higgins calls him back, and Brian Albert and Brian Higgins are on the phone together for 22 seconds. 2:23 a.m., Jennifer McCabe climbs the stairs to her bedroom. 2:27 a.m., Jennifer McCabe searches on Google how long to die in the cold. 2:30 a.m., plow driver Brian Laughlin confirms there was no body on Brian Albert's front lawn. 3:30 a.m., Brian Laughlin
Awesome. Thanks for being here.
that a Ford Edge was parked right where John O'Keefe's body was later found.
Well, they tried to do it. No, Jody, they tried to do it. And Jackson's like, I'm going to count it out. And she's like, you're not doing that. Like, you're not doing that. Remember, she shut him down. It might have not have been time. He said, if I can for the court, was it time or steps? I can't remember. I think it was time. He wanted to time it, and she said no. She shut him down right away. Lexi B, $5, says, did the defense verify if Higgins often went to Canton PD off duty late at night, or was that night the first time? I don't know if they verified it, but I think they probably would, because you have badge in and badge out time. So if they got those records, yeah, they could see, you know, if they got the time card records, I guess you could see when people are badging in and out. Yeah, save it for closing, Mr. Jackson. Yep. Yep. All right, let's go. Yeah, he wanted to show it, and she said no. Remember.
That I expect that they will persist in asking you to convict Karen Read anyway. You will learn that there are other major problems with the Commonwealth's theory. You'll learn that when John O'Keefe was found, he did not look like he had been hit by a car. You'll learn that he looked to have been attacked and beaten up. You'll learn that John O'Keefe was a large 6'2" man who, if positioned behind a Lexus SUV, would have had his torso completely exposed to the rear of that vehicle, including to the taillight. You'll learn that no part of his torso was injured. There was no bruising, no ridges, no scratches, no punctures. You'll learn that his chest and hips and legs were pristine, despite the Commonwealth's contention that he was hit by a 6,000-pound vehicle. The evidence will show that what was not pristine was his right arm. You will take one look at that arm, and you will conclude that a car did not cause those injuries. The injuries to John O'Keefe's arm appear to be consistent with scratch marks and claw marks, marks that make it look as though an animal had attacked his arm. But you won't have to rely just on your common sense when you look at those photos. You'll hear from an expert forensic.
You think Yannetti should have said dog? You think Yannetti should have put dog in there? I mean, I said animal. You know, they can't quite say that it was Chloe for sure, right? But do you think that he should have said dog? They resemble a dog bite or a dog scratch. I think that was kind of maybe a miss point, right? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just throwing my opinion out there. You think that he kind of missed on that one? They should have said dog instead of animal. Because you say animal, well, John gets dragged out on the front lawn. Maybe some animal came by, you know? But I think that could have been a good point. I'm just saying dog. D. Celine, thank you for much becoming a new member. All right, let's go.
Pathologist.
And everybody's saying dog.
World renowned, who has personally conducted thousands of autopsies. And he will testify that those marks are consistent with scratch and claw marks and bite marks.
Tracy, thank you so much for the $5 on Cash App. She said, in Lucky We Trust. Fuck the haters. You're so on. Thank you so much.
From an animal.
Appreciate it.
A German Shepherd.
Mark,
You'll learn that on January 29th, 2022, Brian Albert's family dog, Chloe, was a German Shepherd. You'll learn that Brian Albert has admitted that this dog is not good around strangers.
Yeah, I like that one.
You'll learn that on January 29th of 2022, John O'Keefe would have been a stranger to that dog. And you'll learn that Chloe had been the beloved family dog for the Alberts for 7 years. The Albert family loved Chloe. But strangely, as we discuss this dog today, the Albert family doesn't have its beloved Chloe anymore. You'll learn that Brian Albert was called to testify before the grand jury regarding this matter in April of 2022, and that he did testify about his German Shepherd, Chloe, during that grand jury testimony.
Ah, there we go.
And you'll learn that not long after that testimony, Brian Albert and his family rehomed their beloved family dog. They gave away their family dog. And Chloe, the German Shepherd, is therefore now gone.
Tracy, Tracy again said $5. And she said, what'd she say? Tagged you on Facebook today. Happy Brian Day. Oh, that's right. Today was Brian Day. It was time to celebrate all the Brians. I remember that. And I did. I liked the post. So thank you. That was very, very nice. And it is. It's National Brian Day today. National Brian Day.
Now, the Commonwealth will try to take your attention away from all of these troubling facts and try to persuade you not to consider their shocking lack of investigation of anyone else, not to consider John O'Keefe's injuries, not to consider the fact that multiple people left the residence and saw no body, not to consider the fact that the snowplow driver was specifically looking at 2:30 a.m. and there was no body there, not to consider the fact that two people in the house were communicating at 2:22 a.m., but denied speaking to each other for 22 seconds, and not to consider the fact that one of their witnesses, who was also present at the home, was unusually curious at 2:27 a.m. about how long it would take for someone to die in the cold. The Commonwealth will instead try to persuade you that Karen Read supposedly had a motive to kill John O'Keefe because they were not getting along. You'll hear about their trip to Aruba over.
Tracy, again, very nice. She said, sent $5 again. She said, never stop being you. No explanation necessary. Thank you, Tracy. Very, very kind. Thank you.
New Year's Eve, and that Karen was upset that John had been flirting with another woman. And you will hear that Karen considered exploring her options after that trip, which led her to a get-together at one point with ATF federal agent Brian Higgins, although that never went anywhere. But you'll also hear that in January of 2022, after the Aruba trip, and not long before January 28th and 29th, John O'Keefe was making long-term plans with Karen.
Intentionally and unapologetically here. $5. Thank you so much for the dono. I appreciate that. All right, let's keep rocking and rolling. A couple more minutes, and then we'll do the
and also
closing
another trip with Karen and another couple
argument
for months into the future. And you'll see video of how John and Karen were interacting on the night in question. You'll see for yourself how they looked at each other on the video at the waterfall that night. Nobody who saw them that night saw anything wrong. There was nothing wrong. I mean, like any.
Tracy, again, $5. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. She said, laugh out loud. This is the last one tonight. Thank you. I appreciate
Couples,
that.
occasionally they would bicker or disagree, but you will hear zero evidence of any domestic violence in that home whatsoever. John never raised a hand in anger toward Karen, and Karen never raised a hand in anger toward John. That simply wasn't who they are. You will conclude the notion that Karen Read chose the start of a snowstorm to suddenly become violent out of the blue for the first time and intentionally kill her boyfriend by hitting him with a car and leaving him there with a house full of people inside is patently ridiculous. You will also learn that what's not ridiculous is that someone, not Karen Read, ambushed John O'Keefe. Somebody probably didn't mean to kill him, but somebody went too far. You'll learn that Trooper Proctor failed to investigate motives that other people had to harm John O'Keefe. You'll learn that Proctor failed to investigate anything or anyone who was in the Albert residence that night. You'll learn that he failed to investigate the antagonistic relationship between members of the Albert family and John O'Keefe. You'll learn that apparently nobody investigates the Albert family of Canton. Remember, on day one, Trooper Proctor was asked whether the homeowner, Ryan Albert, would catch a lot of grief. And Trooper Proctor himself said it. Nope. Homeowner's a Boston cop.
Nick Rocco in the chat. What's up, Nick?
So, folks, the trial is now about to start, and the witnesses are about to start testifying. On behalf,
Nick, you got to come on the show. I ask you all the time. Give me like a half an hour with you sometime. You got to come over here and hang out. I gotta interview you. It's been a long time coming, but let's do that sometime. Actually, you know what? Can you do me a favor? Actually, no, I'm not going to say it on air because I'm trying to put something together, but I'm going to text you about something tomorrow. And if you can get me a phone number, I would appreciate it. But dude, just like a half an hour. Come on the show sometime. I'd really appreciate you to come up here. Everybody's been asking you to come up on the show and hang out. But I'm going to text you tomorrow about something. I got a project in the works. All right, let's finish up 2 more minutes here. And I'm going to do the closing argument from Alan Jackson.
During this trial. First, I ask that you pay attention to all.
No, dude, you can do it virtually, bro.
The way trials
you can do it virtually.
Gets to
That's what I mean. Just virtually. Let's do something. I'd love to have you on the show, man. I'd love to interview you. But if you even give me half an hour of your time, I would appreciate it. I know you're very busy, but we'll get you up here. Let's plan for it. And I'm gonna text you tomorrow. I gotta find out something. I got a plan in the works for something.
Present its case first. They conduct their direct examinations first.
Yeah.
So we respectfully ask that you wait for us. We will get to cross-examine their witnesses, and you will find that
awesome.
Cross-examination is.
Thanks, Nick. We'll do a fundraiser. We'll try to raise some money for Karen.
You'll be glad if you did. Second, I ask that you keep your eye on the ball. You have one job and one job only to do during this trial, and that job, quite frankly, is not to solve this case. Your only job during this trial is to determine whether the Commonwealth, the prosecution, has proven to you each and every element of the crimes they have charged, beyond a reasonable doubt to a moral certainty. The prosecution will fail to prove this case to a moral certainty. They will fail to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. You will reasonably doubt
Wow.
their case.
That's the first time. Look at this. We're at 39 minutes. And just before, a little bit before 39 minutes, that's the first time I heard reasonable doubt. I could be wrong because it just kind of stuck out to me. But is that the first time we heard reasonable doubt? This should have been littered through this entire opening. What do you all think? Is this the first time we heard reasonable doubt? It's the first time I heard it. Let me know in the chat.
Because their theory of the case does
Right,
not
we'll
make
raise some money.
You will reasonably doubt their case because Karen Reed was framed, and the evidence shows that, despite the fact that the police never ever investigated that angle of this case.
One time.
Because the prosecution will not prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt to a moral certainty, we will stand before you again at the end of this trial and ask that you find Karen Reed not guilty.
There we go. Wonderful statement. Yeah, but I only heard it once. Let's see. Nick says, I don't really do YouTube shows. I've gone on Calling All Means once, but I mainly do court TV. But I'd like to have you here, Nick. We got to do something here. Glamasu's $5 says there's an additional blood stain. There's 3 additional blood stains on John's jeans and 4 additional contributors of that blood stain on the right instep. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. We need to explore this. Colleen, thanks for becoming a new member. I appreciate that. We had another Cash App come through. Tracy again, another $5. Thank you, Tracy. She said $5 for watching this back. My heart still breaks for John O'Keefe and Karen. Yes, I agree. All right. Let's do this closing. Let's do the closing. You ready? Yeah, Natalie says 100%, Brian. I think that they should focus on the concept of reasonable doubt. Hammer that home. Hammer it home. Hammer, hammer, hammer. Hammer Hank, right? Hammer Hank. All right, let's do the closing statement here. Hammer it home. All right, here we go, Mr. Jackson. It's a new trial.
In Massachusetts, because the Commonwealth has the burden of proof, Commonwealth goes last. So we will hear now from Mr. Jackson.
Action Jackson. Here we go. I'm going to speed it up a little bit here. Oh, God, she's already sighing.
Look the other way. Look the other way. 4 words that sum up the Commonwealth's entire case. 4 words that sum up the hopes of those who have tried to deceive you. Conflicts of interest? Doesn't matter. Just look the other way. Magic hairs, magic glass. Look the other way. Late night calls and Google searches, falsified affidavits, inverted videos, and butt dials galore. Just look the other way. That's what they want. That's what they're counting on. But the uncontrovertible fact is you have been lied to in this courtroom. And your job is to make sure you don't ever, ever look the other way. Your singular duty is to stare down the evidence and do it unflinchingly and do it unwaveringly. You see, you're the only thing standing between Karen Reed and the tyranny of injustice. It's a job you didn't ask for, probably a job you didn't want. But it's the greatest responsibility we have as citizens here in America. Lest the government stop answering to us and we start answering to the government.
Yep, that's right. And Jackson spoke to that.
Any one of us who might.
They testify, and then all of a sudden, a couple days later, they're there on the side of John O'Keefe's family. Ironic, right?
Find ourselves in the crosshairs of Proctor. Preparing for today, I was reminded of a quote. It's a quote about the truth, and I want to share it with you. It is of great importance to set a resolution never to tell an untruth. There is no vice so mean, so pitiful, so contemptible, and those who permit themselves to tell a lie once find it much easier to do it a second time and a third. This falsehood of the tongue leads to that of the heart, and in time, it depraves all its good dispositions.
Denise, thanks for the $2.
What does that mean? It means that it's been observed that to tell an untruth, to exaggerate, to make a false claim, it's a cancer. One lie begets another, and it's a malignancy that grows over time. And that, folks, is how a cover-up is born. That's how a Massachusetts state trooper says in whispered tones to his friends when he thought no one was looking or listening, how he would make a case, how he would make it cut and dry, no matter the truth, how he would make sure to put, quote, serious charges on the girl. In other words, pin it on the girl. You may ask yourself, how does this happen? How could this happen? It's 2024. Surely people aren't going to come to this.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this. If it wasn't for the Roccos, it would be a different case for Karen. They've done a hell of a job of raising funds for Karen. And again, I go back to my opening statement tonight that if we weren't all here and involved in this, it would be a completely different trial for Karen. 1.0, 2.0, whatever it may be. This would be completely different for Karen. And thank God, or whatever higher power that you believe in above, that these people have been, come forward and helped. I say that all the time, is that we're all put here in this very moment for a purpose. There's a general purpose in all of this. And we're all playing our pieces of the pie here. And whatever God or higher power has chosen us to do that, there is a reason for it. Because I truly believe in life, everything happens for a reason. 100%. Everything happens for a reason. Right now, you're all the chosen ones because you're here, you're supporting, you're doing the standouts, you're making the donations, you're buying the merchandise that 100% of the funds go to Karen Read's Defense Fund. You're wearing pink in support. You're telling your neighbor about Karen Read's story. That all matters. You're all put here in this very moment for that specific reason. I'm going to tell you this. This has completely changed my life. It's completely changed who I am as a person. One, I've become a lot more tolerant as a person. 2, I've had more patience. 3, my heart has opened up more. My closed-mindedness has opened, has changed. You've all made a huge impact on my life. This case has made a huge impact on my life. I've met some really fantastic people through all of this. And I just keep saying, I wish I didn't have to meet you all in this situation. But here we are. And we're all put here for a purpose. All right, let's keep going here.
Hall of Justice and lie to us, just give us false information. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't try to cover up the truth. The Alberts, the McCabe's, Higgins, Lank, Michael Proctor, Yuri Buchanan, Brian Tully. You don't have to wonder if they would lie to support their narrative. You need only wonder how many times they did lie. Over and over and over. They and others were caught deceiving you. Big things, small things. It didn't really matter. They feared nothing. They'll look you in the eye and deny phone calls. They'll deny secret meetings. They'll claim that calls are butt dials and butt dials are answered. They'll show you a video and tell you left is right and right is left. They'll magically turn 3 pieces of plastic into 5 right before your eyes. And even when they're caught with their own lies, they won't blink. They don't sweat. They'll just look you in the eye and demand, pay no attention.
I have hair now. Apparently, all the trolls think it's hair plugs. I'm like, dude, I wouldn't even waste my money. I would just shave my head again. Oh, God.
You folks,
I love it.
look the other way.
I love some of the shit they come up with.
Ladies and gentlemen, there was a cover-up in this case, plain and simple. You'll surely say to yourself, I don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe that could happen in our community. But sadly, over the past 8 weeks,
you've done a great job, Nick. You really have.
Your eyes. So how does a cover-up happen? How could that happen? Well, let's count the ways, shall we? Handpick your investigator. Make sure it's someone we know, someone on our side. Keep him close. Offer him help. Offer him a gift. Have secret friends and family meetings. Get your story straight. Delete your call history. Make mysterious phone calls at 2:22 a.m. Delete Google searches. Monitor police activity. Get rid of evidence. Get rid of your dog. Destroy your phones. Destroy your SIM card. For the investigator, decide on a narrative early on. Don't go to the crime scene. Don't take witnesses in for questioning. Question all the witnesses together. Ignore witnesses who don't fit your narrative. Allow friends and family to contact those same witnesses. Don't record interviews. Write vague and false police reports. Omit witnesses' names. Omit witnesses' interviews altogether. Don't photograph the evidence. Don't conduct any forensics. Don't document the evidence. Don't document the logs. Don't create any logs whatsoever, and don't maintain a chain of custody. Keep all the evidence in the hands of one person and then manipulate that evidence, including videos. Don't turn over videos. Invert videos. Turn 4:16 p.m. into 5:30 p.m. in affidavits. Turn 3 pieces of taillight.
I know who gave you that. I know who gave you that hat,
Delete
Lisa.
42 minutes of surveillance footage, hide personal relationships, make this case cut and dry, and ensure the homeowner, quote, never sees any shit because he's a Boston cop. But most importantly, pick your patsy and pin it on the girl. It's not that it could happen. It's that every single one of those things I just mentioned did happen right in front of you. But this sort of injustice can't happen in a vacuum. So what about the prosecution? What about the Commonwealth? What does it look like when the government picks a narrative and then tries to form a prosecution around the narrative instead of the other way around? Looks a lot like this. If you don't have actual evidence, just throw every single thing you can against the wall to see what sticks. Drag her through the mud and make sure you attack her character. And that's what you saw in this case. The Commonwealth spent much of their time and resources trying to vilify Karen Read. They desperately resorted to calling witnesses to talk about Karen Read and John O'Keefe's.
I wanted to show you this. I don't know if you all saw this, but I posted this the other day. I'm a big fan of the movie Reservoir Dogs. If you've ever seen the movie, this is kind of in style of that movie poster. And I got the sunglasses on Team Read, all the attorneys with Karen, and then her family in the background there. But this was very yeah, I love it, right? I made this the other day. I posted it up. I love it. So cool. All right, let's get back to Alan Jackson. Here we go.
And put them through this ordeal. All to say that John sometimes got upset because Karen was too kind, too nice.
I'll post after the stream. I'll post it on my Facebook page if you want to grab it and use it for your computer background or iPad background or phone background. I'll post it up for you all. So if you want to save it and do whatever you want with it, you can share it. It's cool. I was playing around. I said I want to do something kind of in the style of like that. Let's go to work. That's what I get from that. Like let's go to work. Maybe I'll put it at the top. Let's go to work. But yeah, I love that. All right, back to Jackson. We got a little way to go here.
Spoiled them too much. Their arguments illustrated what anybody could imagine is a normal set of ups and downs for any couple. Even on January 28th, they talked it out, they communicated, they worked out their issues, and they had a nice, affectionate evening out with their friends. And you don't have to take my word for it. Pull the tape, as they say. Look at the videos. C.F. McCarthy, Waterfall. What are the words that every single person who testified in this case used about Karen Read and John O'Keefe that night? Getting along, no issues, good mood, happy, affectionate, even lovey-dovey. No issues, no toxicity. They were a loving couple right up into the time Karen Read dropped him off and he walked into 34 Fairview. If an argument with a loved one is a motive for murder, folks, we're all in trouble. Speaking of which, what is the evidence that John went into the house? The Commonwealth will tell you, undoubtedly, no, he never went in the house. And they'll point to certain witnesses who they say didn't see him go in. Well, the question you have to ask yourself is, can you rely on that? First, these are all people who are related to or committed to the Alberts in some way or another. That all-powerful Kenton family, it's easy to say, I didn't see something, because how can that really be challenged? Some actually may not have seen.
Yeah, it'd be cool,
John
right?
Into the house. They were in the kitchen, as you recall, from Nicole. Third, at least one witness, Brian Higgins, forgot his narrative, at least for a second, and he admitted a man did, in fact, come into the house, and when he was caught and asked to describe that man, he had to. It was a little bit vague. You remember what he said. He was tall, with dark hair. That was a telling slip of the tongue by Brian Higgins. But what's the real evidence of the unbiased data, the data that's not connected to the Albert family? How about John's Apple Health data? It shows that at 12:21 a.m., an important time, John arrived. That's established by the monotonic time clock that you heard about in this trial. It was on his phone, and that represents a huge problem for the Commonwealth. It shows that he took 80 steps and ascended or descended 3 flights of
Very
stairs
important.
at that time. And that makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
God, I wish I had Lauren on the panel right now. We actually did this experiment. Well, she did this experimentation the other day with her Apple Health data. And actually, we'll talk about it on Sunday. We got something planned for Sunday on the Sunday show, but we're going to talk about that. And it's pretty interesting what she came up with.
Matches. Walks into the house, goes directly to the basement. There's your 80 steps and your descending flights of stairs. The big problem for the Commonwealth is he wasn't outside at the car ascending and descending stairs, wasn't climbing on top of the car. So they'll tell you, wait, don't look at the Apple Health data. Look at this other thing called Waze. But Rick Green explained that if you apply the 3-minute offset that is built into that monatomic time, it aligns perfectly. They don't want you to see that. They don't want you to pay attention. They want you to look the other way. But even more importantly, at approximately 12:32 a.m., someone holding John's phone takes another 36 steps and travels 25 meters. Why is that so important? Because by 12:32 a.m., Karen Reed was gone. She had already left the location. She left at 12:30. Trooper Garino told you that Karen Reed's phone connected to John's Wi-Fi at what time? 12:36. It is undisputed in this case that it's a 6-minute drive on a good day from 34 Fairview over to One Meadows. She was gone by 12:30, and John's phone was taking 36 steps and logging 25 meters at 12:32 after she left. So don't be fooled. John walked into that house, after which Karen drove away, and the scientific data all prove it. But also, Ryan Nagel and Heather Maxson prove it. In addition to the Apple Health data, Ryan and Heather both independently testified that they passed Karen's SUV as they drove away after talking to Julie. And Karen was alone in the SUV. John was not with her. He wasn't in the car. He wasn't standing outside the car. He wasn't sitting beside the car. He wasn't laying on the ground beside the car. He was nowhere in sight. There's only one other place that John could have been, and that's in the house.
Inside the house.
Exactly where the Apple Health data places him. So it all fits. And Ryan was right behind her, remember, staring at her taillights, undamaged, brightly lit. That brings up another difficulty for the Commonwealth, and that's their star witness, Jennifer McCabe. You'll recall that Jennifer McCabe claimed that she was looking out the door, staring at that SUV over and over and over again from 12:29 to 12:50. She was very specific about that time frame. But we know that the SUV was gone from 34 Fairview by about 12:30. Had to be in order to connect to the Wi-Fi at 12:36. So unequivocally, Jennifer McCabe was lying about watching that SUV, and it makes you wonder why. And to add to that deceit, she was also blatantly lying about the calls to John's phone. You remember that colloquy back and forth. She said that every single one of those calls to John's phone during that time was a butt dial. How are those lies connected? And why are they connected? Jennifer McCabe knows. Was she butt dialing John over and over? Or was someone looking for John's phone?
Yes.
Let's talk for a second about what actually happened in the time leading up to everyone going to 34 Fairview. Brian Albert, Brian Higgins show up drunk at the waterfall. They'd been drinking in the afternoon. You know about the flirtatious texts that were sent between Karen Reed and Brian. Higgins was clearly pining over Karen, but for her, the flirtation had ran its course. It was done. She was happy and committed to John. You can see that in her actions with John that night. You don't have to guess. Brian Higgins, however, you can see in his actions, he wasn't quite so satisfied and he wasn't done. His text message, well, meaning, what the hell, Karen? What about me? Seemed aggressive, seemed annoyed. He didn't like being ignored. That was pretty clear. So he's 5 or 6 whiskeys deep into the night by this time, and she continued to ignore him. Then oddly, Higgins, who doesn't know John all that well, seems to want to coax John to 34 Fairview. I draw your attention to the waterfall tape. If you want to take another look at it, it's at the 11:57 mark, between 11:57 and 11:58. Take a look at that tape. He's just about to leave. Higgins
You
is just
can't
about
tell me that piece of shit didn't fucking show up to sit in the background there and stare at that jury and intimidate them. Give me a fucking break. Give me a break. Like, look at him. That is very intimidating for a jury. Super intimidating.
He points over at John and he motions for him. Come on, come with me. And then at 12:20, he texts him, you coming here? This is a person he doesn't really know and didn't really talk to that entire night. Ask yourself, why was Higgins so insistent that John go to 34 Fairview that night? And then there's that sparring and fighting that he and Brian Albert were engaged in. Of all the things they could be doing, this is what they were doing just minutes before John O'Keefe walked into that house at 3430. We know that once John actually did walk in the door, it's about 2 steps, 4 feet or so, 2 steps for an adult male to reach that basement door. Remember, everybody was gathered in the kitchen. That's what Nicole Albert said. And every single witness agreed that at some point, Brian Higgins and Brian Albert left the group and went to another room. Where did they go? Where did they go together? Another important point. Chloe was not upstairs. Brian Albert slipped in one of his in testimony that he provided. Quote, I was watching Chloe downstairs, monitoring her because of the other people in the house. She's not good with strangers. Remember that testimony. So what happened next? We absolutely know that John was in the house. The data, Ryan, Heather, they all established that. We know that John ascended or descended stairs. We know that Brian Higgins and Brian Albert excused themselves. How long does it take to have a crossword? How long does it take to have a fight? How long would it take for Brian Higgins to say to John, you know, your girl's been texting me. A push, a punch, a fall, pull Chloe off his arm, and now it's done. What is that? 5 seconds?
That's what I always thought.
Doesn't take long at all. And then the panic sets in. It wasn't intended to go that far, but what's done is done. And then some very, very odd things start happening at the Albert household. Very odd indeed. What do we know? We know through the testimony and key swipes that Brian Higgins very oddly goes directly to Canton Police Department. Why would he do that? After a night of drinking and partying, why go to CPD when you're drunk? What was so important there? He couldn't even get his own story straight. First, he said it was administrative work. Then he said he was moving cars. Then he said it was a factor of both. Is it both? Was it neither? Or was he there to gather intel? Ask yourself, why go? But the odd things keep piling up. And here's another. Chloe was the Albert family pet. Not only did she appear to be gone from the house that morning on January 29th, nobody saw her there. Even Jen McCabe admitted, I didn't see her there. But they actually got rid of the dog altogether. Within months of this incident, the dog was gone, out of the house, rehomed, never to be seen
Welcome
again.
in.
This was a dog they had had for 7 years. Also a dog who had a bite history. Why was it so important to get rid of that dog? Was there something about the dog they did not want law enforcement to find out? Recall what Dr. Russell said. She's seen up to 1,000 animal attacks. In her expert opinion, John's right arm, those injuries are from an animal, quote, most likely a large dog. And Dr. Russell's testimony, I'll remind you, was undisputed by any witness for the Commonwealth. But there are more odd and unexplained things. After a night of drinking and hanging out and partying, after being together for the entire day at 2:22 a.m., Brian Albert decides to call Brian Higgins. That call was missed, but 17 seconds later, Higgins calls Brian back, and they speak for 22 seconds. Now, that call is odd and suspicious enough in and of itself, the fact that the call was made. But what's even more incriminating is that both men, both of them, lied about the calls happening. They both claim astonishingly that those calls are, you probably say it with me, they're butt dials. Amazing. But Albert and Higgins take it a step further. Not only did they claim that they were making calls as butt dials, but they were answering calls as butt dials. And Higgins seemed awfully defensive about that call, didn't he? Remember on cross-examination when I was asking, can you have a conversation in 22 seconds? He unequivocally said, no, that's impossible. It's not reasonable. You can't do it. Let's test that out. Hey, did you make it over to Canton? Yep.
Here we
Haven't had
go.
any calls. Nobody knows a thing. All right, don't talk to anybody until we talk again. Okay, fine. And by the way, come back over. I need help moving something heavy. How long did that take? 15 seconds, maybe? But the odd behavior isn't done yet. 5 minutes after that call that we just talked about, Jennifer McCabe is on her phone at her house, Google searching
100%.
for someone to die in the cold. That was at 2:27 a.m. That timeline seems to fit, doesn't it? And it fits a very telling and a very clear story. That search became a focal point of the Commonwealth's entire case. This case was starting to look a lot more like the defense of Jennifer McCabe than anything else. That's probably because there is no innocent explanation for that Google search at 2:27 a.m.
It's fact.
None.
That's a fact.
At the end of the day, clearing away all the confusion of the Commonwealth's experts, we're left with 2 things that are true. First, neither of their experts could absolutely rule out that Jennifer McCabe made that search at 2:27 a.m. Neither. And second, the only person to use the actual phone model, the actual data, and the actual precise operating system was Rick Green. And he was clear. That search was at or before 2:27 a.m. And then it was deleted. So what else was going on at or around this same time when all this suspicious activity was happening at the Albert House and the McCabe house? 3 minutes after that search and 8 minutes after the Albert Higgins 2:22 a.m. call, Brian Loughran drives down the street in his snowplow. And he told you that there is no body laying on the lawn at 34 Fairview at 2:30 in the morning. Importantly, he didn't just simply say he didn't see a body, he wasn't paying attention. He said there was no body there. He knows the property, he knows the owners, he's grown up with these folks, he passes by all the time, not once, not twice, 3 passes. There was nobody on that lawn, period, at 2:30 a.m. And what other suspicious thing happened that night? By 3:30 a.m., someone moved a Ford Edge in front of the very area that would obstruct the view of where John's body would ultimately be discovered. Who's the only person in this case that you've heard about with Ford Edge? Brian Albert. Remember, as you're thinking about this, the basement at 34 Fairview is serviced by a bulkhead. It's a quick and convenient door to the backyard. And that backyard is serviced by a side fence. And that side fence is easily accessible to the front yard at the side of the house. Which side of the house? The side where John's body was found. And by 6 a.m., John's body was, in fact, now outside. While this flurry of suspicious activity was going on with the Alberts and the McCabe's, what's happening with Karen? All she knows at this point, approximately 2:21, she dropped off John, he walked into 34 Fairview, and that's all she knows. She knows nothing else that was going on. So what was she left to think? He goes in to check the party out, but all of a sudden he's not coming back. He's not responding. Minutes start to pass. 1 minute turns to 2, 2 turns to 10. Where is he? Why isn't he responding? She's sitting in the cold, dark, freezing outside in the car. Naturally, she's perturbed. Being perturbed turns into being peeved. Being peeved eventually turns into being pissed.
Yeah, that's a good point, Rosemary.
By 12:30, Karen's mad. She's left 34 Fairview to make a point, but she's still texting and calling. What could she reasonably be
fucking there during the hearing today? She was there during the fucking hearing today. I posted her photo. It said obsessed 22 fucking years ago. These people are trying to play the fucking woe is me game. Oh, Johnny. These people don't fucking care. Oh, Johnny. If they fucking cared, they wouldn't have Brian fucking Albert sitting on the family side right now. How do you fucking not turn to him and say, why didn't you fucking go outside when you heard fucking ambulance and police cars coming down your fucking street? I would start questioning them. I'm sorry. If that was my son, I'd be knocking on his fucking door and saying, you're a cop. Why didn't you go outside? Why didn't you talk to anybody? This is fucking unbelievable. It's completely unbelievable.
Thinking at this point? What's going through your mind? 12:33 turns into 12:34. I can't believe he'd do this to me. 12:34 turns into 12:35. Where is he? Why aren't you answering, John? 12:35 turns to 12:36. Jesus Christ. I'm calling and you're not answering. Where are you?
How are you not fucking mad at them? Seriously, how are you not even sitting there and even just thinking like, do you think they were part of it? Do you think they fucking did something? I mean, I would. That's pretty suspicious. All those fucking people in that house. And then, yeah, no, it's not them. No, looks like someone hit him with a car. That's the response. It's insane. That was my daughter or my son out there on the front lawn. You fucking sure as shit. I'd be walking up and knocking on that door and talking to everybody that was there that night in that house. You need to explain everything to me. Everything to me.
Pick up the phone. But there's still no answer. There's still no response. By 12:37, she's getting furious. She does not know that something has happened to John. She does not know that. So she leaves the first angry voicemail. Illustrates frustration, aggravation, all the normal responses anybody might have. You and I might have. But little did she know.
Yeah.
The next open voicemail has Karen parking in John's garage after she gets home. You can hear her heels clicking across the garage floor. For all she knows at this point, John's just drunk. He's been partying. He's hanging out. Just forgot about her, blowing her off. But John's still not responding. And as the minutes tick by, Karen becomes increasingly upset. Those are the voicemails that you heard. How could he do this? Why is he ignoring me? Why is he ignoring the kids?
Aaron, looking at the jury.
Those are the thoughts bearing down on Karen Read as she sat in an empty house late at night by herself. Ladies and gentlemen, she did not know what had happened to John. But within the next voicemail, you quickly learn what she was thinking and what she was feeling. Now it's 5:23 a.m. She's woken up. She's realized that he hasn't come home and he hasn't responded to a single text, not a single call. And anger quickly turns to panic and abject fear. She's so distraught, she reaches out to him again. John, where the fuck are you? She says through tears and desperation. And at 6:03, the question was answered, and her worst fears are realized when she finds his body laying, dying in the cold in Brian Albert's front yard. You heard her. You can feel the grief. You can feel the raw anguish. You can see it. You don't have to wonder the emotional journey that Karen traveled that night. You can see it in the video. You can hear it in the audio. From the time he left her and walked into 34 Fairview and she called, she reached out 53 times. She called him 53 times before finding his body. Think about that. The Commonwealth wants you to believe that she murdered this man. And then after that murder, she called him not once, not twice, 53 times. It makes no sense. What does make sense is that she emotionally moved from anger, then to panic, then to grief. So back at 5:07, when she began her search looking for John, she backed out of the garage, and what would happen next would change the entire course of this case. As she backed out of that garage, she hit John's Traverse and cracked her right rear taillight. Folks, the Commonwealth has one job to do in this courtroom. It's an immutable responsibility to provide you with the truth. That's it. Not to win the case, but to seek justice and to do it through the truth. Ask yourself, did you get that truth from the Commonwealth? The Commonwealth continually tried to tell you that that video showed that the SUV came close to John's Traverse, and it took us showing you the video to unequivocally establish that Karen hit that car and cracked her taillight at 5:07. You can almost hear an audible gasp in the courtroom when we finally showed you the actual video. You can see that tire moving.
Yep, they did.
I'm only going to show you one series of exhibits during my entire closing.
That was during Bukkake, right? They showed that video, correct? If I remember, Bukkake was on the stand. I was there that day in court, if that's correct. Someone verify that. We've been through a lot. But they showed the backing up when Bukkake was on the stand, correct? Yes, I knew it. I was there, and I remember hearing the audible gasp from the jury. That was the day I was in court. Yep, I remember that. Because I remember coming home. Actually, you know what? Now it's coming back to me. I remember coming home and doing a live with Jess Machado that night because Jess had been in the courtroom that day. I remember that. Yep, and I remember hearing the audible gasp and talking about that on the show.
But it's that important. And it's this. Look at the condition of her taillight when she pulls out of the driveway at 5:07. That taillight, and I'm going to choose my words very carefully here. That taillight is cracked, but it's not completely damaged. And if there was any question in your mind about the level of damage to that taillight at 5:07, all doubt was extinguished. When Dighton Police Officer Barrows walked into this courtroom, he's a sworn officer. He's not associated with Canton. He's not associated with the Alberts. He's not associated with the McCabe's. He doesn't know Michael Proctor. In other words, he doesn't answer to any of these folks. He's an outsider and he's completely independent. And his words were the following, quote, "That taillight was not completely damaged. It was cracked. A piece was missing, but not completely damaged."
That's right.
Take a look at this photograph and tell me, which one looks like Officer Barrows' description? The one on the left or the one on the right? The reconstructed light on the left is what that light looked like before it was in Trooper Proctor's possession. Remember that. That's what it looked like before Trooper Proctor had access to the SUV. And you have an independent police.
There you go right there. That was the day I got to sit in court. Great picture, by the way. That was such a moment to be in the presence of all those great people. It was a good moment. And Alan Jackson was so nice. Such a nice guy. That was cool. And that was an honor. Complete honor to be there and take that photo. It's pretty cool. All right, let's get back. We got about another 30 minutes here. Again, I appreciate everybody being here tonight on this late Friday night. We got close to almost 1,000 people in here. 988 on YouTube and 1210 on Twitter. If we just smash that like button a little bit more, we can get over 1,000 people on here on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, this is your first time in here, come chat in the chat. We got great people. Subscribe, hit that bell notification. It's important to keep all your bell notifications turned on. And we'll go back to Alan Jackson. Here we go.
You recall that after John's body was discovered, Lank,
you got hair
a
now.
good friend
That's
of the
fine.
Alberts, walked into Brian Albert's house and had an off-the-record meeting with him. No one's ever going to know exactly what that meeting was about, what they discussed, because that interview, like everything else in this case, it wasn't recorded. It wasn't memorialized.
Look better with the hair.
But we do know that shortly thereafter, the Canton Police Department was recused from the matter entirely. And the case was assigned to one Michael Proctor. You have to believe
Have a
that
good
when
night.
the Alberts
Thank
found
you.
that out, they thought they hit the lottery.
Thank you. Thank you.
They
Thank
thought
you.
they hit the lottery. What are the chances? The department where my brother works, that would have been great to investigate this case, but that department's been recused. That's tough luck. But the guy who catches the case is Michael Proctor, a guy we go back with for decades. At such a break, they probably thought, when this is over, we need to get that dude a gift. Oh, wait a minute. They didn't think that. They said it out loud. But still, you've got to imagine that the Alberts had to be stressed, what with that whole thing about a dead body being on their lawn. That might get some attention. And they had to be wondering, will he set up a crime scene? Is he going to come into the house? Is he going to search the house? Is he going to send in a forensics team? Is he going to interview witnesses? Is he going to take us to the station? Will he take our phones? Will he look at our communications? Will he look at our Google searches? Will he look at our early morning phone calls? Is he going to look in the basement? And Michael Proctor answered every single one of those questions resoundingly. Nope. He's a Boston cop too.
Oh, excuse me.
And with that, Michael Proctor didn't draw a thin blue line. He erected a tall blue wall. A wall that you can't scale. A wall that Karen Reed certainly couldn't get over. A wall between us and them. A place you folks are not invited. We protect our own. It's us or it's them. And by the way, who's she after all? Nobody. An outsider. This is going to be easy. Or so they thought. Let's look at what Michael Proctor actually did and did not do in this case. One of the consistent issues that's come up throughout this trial is how evidence always seems to be changing and evolving when in Michael Proctor's hands or somebody in his orbit. If it happens once, let's chalk it up to a mistake. Twice, it's starting to look a little bit like incompetence. If that happens every single time, it becomes intentional, which means it becomes corruption. The defense spent some time, we spent some time discussing the tow time that Michael Proctor swore to in affidavits. There was a reason that we believed it was so important, and I want to talk about that for just a quick second. Because this was a concerted effort by Michael Proctor to falsify the time the car was seized, so that no one would know that he actually had possession of the car before the first pieces of taillight were ever discovered at the scene. But he got caught. And when he did, the best he could come up with was it was a typo. Like
You know, and a lot of this whole thing, like Todd and Mark is just thinking about this. A lot of the thing that Todd and Mark were talking about the other night too is when Karen's car got picked up at her parents' house, why were they not taking any photos of the smashed taillight? They had the opportunity to do that. They had the opportunity to take video. Why would they not do that? Well, we know why now, but that would have just nailed everything home, right? That would have nailed everything home. Just like I said, on day one, the Commonwealth produced the video of Karen hitting John. Keller's camera never turned on, didn't work, didn't record anything that night. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Don't believe it.
Sometimes a typo. You'll remember what that testimony was. The truth is that car was in Michael Proctor's possession from about 4:12 in the afternoon. He said it was 4:16 when he finally had to tell the truth or some version of the truth. Those first pieces of taillight were not found until after 5:45 p.m.
Welcome in. Thank
That
you.
is the very fact that Michael Proctor was trying to hide by those falsified affidavits, saying he didn't seize the car until 5:30.
Whisper, thank you so much on PayPal. We got a message here. It says, "Hey Brian, those fuckers that are saying you are cash grabbing, you got a billboard for Trooper Enrique Delgado Garcia. You fight for those in need, and I see you, and you are amazing and making a difference. Peace and love from Oregon." Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, here we go.
But that wasn't Michael Proctor's only manipulation of the investigation. What about Brian Lochran? You met him. Michael Proctor did his level best to not just hide evidence, but to hide human beings from you and from us. Michael Proctor was informed that the plow drivers were out that night. There would be a witness, potentially along 34 Fairview, at the exact times in question. Even Michael Trotta expressly told Michael Proctor that 34 Fairview had in fact been plowed that morning, and by whom. Proctor not only did not interview Brian Lochran, he never disclosed his name.
I mean, look at the position Brian Koberger's in now, huh? Idaho 4 case. I'll be talking about that again. We'll start doing some lives on that. Oh my God, all the stuff they found. I knew all this shit was going to come out. And the new thing about Koberger they found out, and I knew this about this Strata data. We talked about this a long time ago. It's a running app. And I said, either that thing might have turned on the night that he went there, but that wasn't what happened. He ran a 6-minute mile. That's pretty fit. And then I started thinking like, oh, why did he look so skinny and gaunt? Because he lost a lot of that weight. He lost a lot of weight so he could move quickly. And I don't care what anybody says. I think they got the goods on that guy. All right, let's finish this. Let's stay focused.
He hit him. This is a witness who
Yeah,
was
I'm gonna
literally
be
on
doing a
34
Koberger
Fairview at the
stream
time in
soon.
question where a body was found on the lawn. Wouldn't you want to get the truth from an eyewitness? Wouldn't you want to seek that out? Not if you're Michael Proctor, a close friend of the Alberts. If it were up to Proctor, you literally
Strava.
never would have heard
Sorry, I said Strata.
of or
Strava.
from
It's a
Brian
running
Lochran.
app.
That's a scary prospect. I want to touch briefly on the additional physical evidence, or some additional physical evidence presented by the Commonwealth in this case. You'll recall Christina Hanley. She established to a scientific certainty that the glass on the bumper, which was told to you in opening statement, was going to have something to do with this case. The glass on the bumper was going to match that cocktail glass. She told you unequivocally the glass on the bumper did not match the cocktail glass. They came from two different sources. The glass on the bumper has nothing to do with the cocktail glass. So that glass on the bumper had to get there somehow. It didn't get there by being broken from the cocktail glass. See the point? It had to get on the bumper somehow. It didn't jump up there by itself. And what's really interesting is that there was one piece on the bumper, only one, that matched something else in the case. It was a perfect match to a piece of glass that was supposedly found at the scene. Who do you think had possession of that matching glass? Michael Proctor. So glass on the bumper had to be placed there. And the only person who had anything close to matching the pieces that had to be placed there is Michael Proctor. You do the math. That leads us to the magic hair. The Commonwealth spent a lot of time bringing in experts about mitochondrial DNA and maternal DNA lines and comparative analyses. And all that sounds really great and really sciencey, except for the fact that it just doesn't matter. Why? Because you would have to believe that little hair, tiny, tiny little hair, barely perched on the side of that SUV survived nearly 75 miles of a raging blizzard outside. That would be a magic hair indeed. That magic hair means nothing. The DNA means nothing, and that's because the hair was from somewhere else. It certainly was not from a motor vehicle incident at 34 Fairview on January 29th. That hair was placed there. The DNA on the outside of the taillight housing also merits very little discussion.
Sorry.
John's DNA would be expected to be found all over that SUV, inside, outside, the exterior, the interior, everything he touched would have had his DNA on it. Here's what's actually important about that DNA. No DNA was found on the interior of that taillight. The taillight that they now claim crashed into his arm and shattered.
Yeah.
No blood was found anywhere on that taillight or any taillight pieces. And no tissue was found anywhere on that taillight or any taillight pieces. But we're to believe that taillight literally exploded on John's arm at 25 miles an hour with 1,000 pounds of pressure. We talked about the evidence doing very funny things when in Proctor's possession or the possession of somebody in his orbit. Now think about the videos that you saw. How many videos appear to be somehow manipulated or altered? Just about every single one of them. Look at the video of the Sally Port. Let's take that one, for example, that grainy one. It's missing the exact time that would show the condition of the taillight when it was pulled in to the Sally Port. Pretty important time, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I'd say.
Would someone not want you to see what the condition of the taillight was at that exact time? But the good news is there's a second video. It's much clearer. And it's from the same time frame. We didn't get that one for about 2.5
Thanks,
years
Mo.
into the
Appreciate that.
investigation. Literally, it was after the trial started that that one was turned over. And this is important. The Commonwealth introduced you to a person by the name of Yuri Buchanan. They presented video showing what was clearly the right side of the car. They asked questions about the right side of the car. You'll recall, Mr. Lally asked Sergeant Buchanan, did you or Trooper Proctor ever go at, or near the right side of that taillight? And while he was asking the question, what appeared to be the right side of the car was looking at you. The video was still up. Buchanan paused, turned earnestly into the microphone, stared at you and said, never. We never went anywhere around that taillight, while he was showing you the right side of the car. And that trick might have worked until we got up to cross-examine him. And only then, on the second day of his testimony, did he have to admit that the video was actually inverted. It was backward. And it was cleverly inverted at that. The timestamp had the proper orientation, which means that timestamp had to be removed, the video inverted, and the timestamp placed back on it, which means that was done intentionally. That was not a mistake. And when caught in that obvious fabrication, Buchanan doubled down and said, it's exactly the same. You remember that back and forth. It's exactly the same, he said, as if we're stupid. Is it exactly the same, or is it exactly opposite? Ladies and gentlemen, you were lied to. There is no other way to say it. It's inexcusable. It's abhorrent. But it's also a paradigm of everything that the investigators have been willing to do in this case. Lie, obfuscate,
I
manipulate.
just want to pull this up because I think this is an interesting point, and this is something that I've talked about as well, because I was in that courtroom. I saw the TV. The TV's a piece of shit. You can't see anything on it. The jury was struggling to see it. Everybody in that courtroom was struggling to see it. And I love the fact that we're going to probably see some chalks from the defense. I think that's a strong representation. It's old school lawyering, courtroom presentations. And I love this, just like we saw in the hearing that kind of in May, that May 23rd hearing that brought everybody in. They used that chalk. They showed two of them, John's arm and then the timeline of Chloe. And I think they need to bring all that back because that's old school lawyering. It's worked for many, many, many years. And I love it. And it's a good visual representation. It's static. You know, it's not, you're not dealing with video. And you can get it really close to the jury. So I think that's going to make a big impact as well. Hopefully they're going to use that. They did put a motion in to use chalks and it was approved. So give me some chalks. I love it. All right, let's finish this one out. It's been a late night here on Friday, well over 2 hours here, but we're going to finish out in the next 20 minutes or so. I appreciate everybody being here.
And when they're caught, they just excuse it away. Doesn't matter. It's the same thing. What's the big deal? Just look the other way. And don't forget, Buchanan is Proctor's supervisor, and he was in that little group chat where Karen Reed's naked photos were being searched for. You know the saying about the apple falling from the tree. Ladies and gentlemen, we haven't even started talking about the taillight yet. You'll recall that at the very beginning of this case, you were introduced to no fewer than 5 CPD officers very early on who searched the scene. None of them, not a single one, found any taillight material at the scene. 0. Stephen Seraph, Sean Good, Stephen Olaney, Michael Lank, Paul Gallagher, they were all there. They were all walking right around there. They were all looking. They were searching with their eyes. They were searching with their hands.
Yeah, I'm going to come out.
Some said they were searching with their feet. They even used tools, a leaf blower. Not one piece of bright red taillight material was at the scene, not a single piece, but incredibly, over the course of the next 3 weeks, according to Michael Proctor, 47 pieces of taillight material would end up being found, some of which were the size of a salad plate. The CERT team shows up later on January 29th, and according to O'Hara, the first few pieces of taillight were found about 5:45. And here's some interesting testimony that you heard. Who else was there? Who did O'Hara say was there? Well, he said his team was there. He certainly expected that, but then he said there were others. These other mysterious figures, some from Canton PD, some from the Massachusetts State Police, that he could not account for. Heavy coats, big masks, hats. Even Lieutenant O'Hara could not tell who was who, but he did note Canton police officers were there who were unaccounted for.
I'm going out for a couple
Massachusetts State
days.
troopers were there
I'm going to go.
unaccounted for. And during that search that was overseen by Trooper Tully, Proctor's supervisor, 3 pieces of taillight material were found.
Hello,
That's
welcome
super
in.
important, and I want to concentrate on that for a second. O'Hara said all 3 pieces were in an area about 12 inches square. That's an area about as big as your dinner plate. Tully, however, claimed that 1 red piece was found. About 3 feet away from that was a shoe. About 1 to 2 feet from that was a clear piece of plastic, and a few feet away from that was a red piece of plastic. So we have red, clear, and red over the span of about, added up, probably 10 or 12 feet. Ladies and gentlemen, both of those things cannot be true. Somebody is taking liberties with the facts. Then Lieutenant Tully comes to court and makes this big grand gesture of opening all these evidence bags. These 2 evidence bags in particular represent exactly what we're talking about. Those 3 pieces, red, clear, red. They're marked, they're sealed, they look official. They're not stop and shop bags, thank God. At least they've moved up from that. They've even got evidence tape on them. Who knew? There's evidence tape around here. So this must be real evidence, right? It must be real evidence in this case. And after making that big theatrical display, he opens up the bag with the red pieces and he pulls 2 pieces out. That's okay. Put the 2 red pieces together. Good so far. Then he opens up the second bag under Mr. Lowley's questioning. And you remember he hesitated just a second. Opened that bag and pulled out 1 piece of clear plastic. Then pulled out a second piece of clear plastic with no explanation as to how that could have possibly happened. And he quickly returned all 4 of those back into the bag, sealed them up, and we're done for the day. The next day, I asked about that evidence again. I asked him to open up that bag with the red pieces, and he did the same thing. Pulled out 2 red pieces of plastic. And I said, you'll recall this, I said, look deeper, look closer, sir. Pull everything out of that bag. Would he have had I not suggested it?
Yeah, the dog did plan it. The dog's name is Proctor.
And then he pulled a 3rd piece of red plastic out of the bag. So miraculously, Trooper Tully's 3 pieces of plastic became 5 pieces of plastic right before your eyes. Ladies and gentlemen, the forces at play that multiplied those pieces of plastic inside those evidence bags are the same forces at play that multiplied the pieces of plastic at 34 Fairview. Think about that. Let that sink in for a second. How easy is it? That's not sloppiness. That's evidence manipulation. That's how over the course of 3 weeks, those pieces of plastic go from 0 to 3 to 5 to 47, ever increasing in size with every single search. Now, knowing all that, ask yourself the looming question: who had access to that taillight, the cracked taillight?
Bada bing, bada boom, bada bing.
Go back and watch the Sallyport video. I'll give you the timestamp, 5:37, and see it for yourself. We know that Trooper Proctor, with binder in hand, walked by himself. Once we corrected the video from being inverted, you can see that he walked back by himself to the right rear taillight where nobody could see what he was doing. Higgins' own key swipes put him in the Sallyport that same afternoon and evening. And then the Sallyport video magically skips, and Chief Berkowitz appears right next to Proctor at the back of that vehicle in the same spot, and they walk out of the Sallyport together. Where were they going? Remember O'Hara. Unidentified troopers and Canton cops were at the search at 34 Fairview. How hard is it to drop a piece of plastic? We spent a long time talking about the compromised and altered and tampered and manipulated evidence, and now I want to switch and talk a little bit about the true facts in this case, because you did hear some true evidence and true facts. The Commonwealth presented about 67, maybe more, witnesses and expended 30 plus days of trial and 9 weeks of your life. Maybe we're in the 10th week. For what? It should be relatively simple, right? The Commonwealth claims that Karen Reed pulled up to 34 Fairview, John got out of the car, she reversed into him and hit him, and then she drove home. That's 4 facts. It's just 4 facts. That's all it is. What evidence do they actually have to prove that SUV ever hit John? The answer is none. They don't have any. There's no evidence whatsoever that Karen Reed's vehicle ever struck John O'Keefe, or that Karen Reed ever wanted to strike John O'Keefe. In fact, every single piece of material evidence in this case unequivocally proves the opposite.
I think we would have seen it by now. No? Or maybe it's a mouth-dropping moment in trial too, but I think we would have heard or seen something by now.
Into that house, that SUV was not damaged by hitting John, and John's injuries did not come from being hit by a car. That's what the evidence actually shows. The Commonwealth knows that, and they've known it for a long time, and Proctor knows that. And because of that, the Commonwealth just resorts to character assassination and talking for weeks on end about the snow. Let's talk about what the real evidence actually shows, the unassailable science. Let's talk about the truth. Concerning John's injuries first, the Commonwealth's own medical examiner, Dr. Scorti-Bello, could not conclude that John was hit by a car. Think about that. And she would not even say that it was a homicide. She told you without any dispute in this case, quote, evidence pointing toward one manner of death is no more compelling than evidence of a competing manner of death, end quote. Her words, not mine. She went on to say it's just as likely that he was punched and fell backward. His injuries are consistent with that. In fact, in her expert opinion, his injuries are consistent with a physical altercation, as she testified, but they are not, in her words, not classical injuries from an auto pedestrian accident. That by itself is reasonable doubt. But the evidence and the truth go.
There it is. Is that the first time we heard reasonable doubt in Jackson's closing? Is that the first time? Because it just caught my ear and we're 49 minutes in. It's the first time, isn't it? We got to hammer that home, Jackson. We got to hammer that home, Mr. Yannetti. We got to hammer that home, Mr. Alessi. We need to hammer that home, Miss Little. We got to do it. Say it more. Say it often. Say it all the time. Let this jury know. All right, let's finish it up.
Goes far further. We introduced you to not one, but two thoroughly credentialed medical examiners or medical experts, Dr. Sheridan and Dr. Russell, both of whom said John's arm injury is consistent with an animal attack. Dr. Russell studied, diagnosed, and treated up to 1,000 animal wounds. She's an expert in animal wounds, and she was unequivocal. Those wounds are from an animal, likely a large dog, which means that John was attacked inside the home where Chloe was.
100%.
There is no other possibility. And Dr. Sheridan, for his part,
I agree,
thousands of
Jody.
13,000 autopsies under his belt, decades of experience as the chief medical examiner who's triple credentialed in anatomical, forensic, and neuropathology. He told you that John's injuries are inconsistent with a motor vehicle accident.
Look at this. Robin, I love this. Look at this. Proctor is now a verb. To proctor or to be proctored equals 1, tampering with evidence in a criminal case, and 2, the act of searching for nudes in a cell phone. That is so funny. That's really, really good. Oh, I love it. I'm screenshotting that and posting it. Oh, I love that. I'm posting that. That's great. I'm going to post that up.
Incident.
Good stuff.
They're consistent, however, with a physical altercation. In layman's terms, the science proves John was beaten. That also is reasonable doubt and should end this case. But the facts and evidence don't stop there. Two of the most highly educated and highly qualified engineers you'll ever meet, Dr. Dan Wolf and Dr. Andrew Rentschler, mechanical engineer and a biomechanist. They reviewed this case. They did testing. They did analysis. They evaluated the case scientifically. They were not hired by the defense, not by the Commonwealth. They're completely 100% independent of any party in this case. And they were equally available, by the way, to the Commonwealth. They could have called them. They explained that John's injuries were not caused by being hit by Miss Reed's SUV, and that the SUV was not damaged by coming in contact with John O'Keefe's body. That should end the inquiry right there. Both sides of the equation. From a physics, engineering, and biomechanical standpoint, they established that John O'Keefe was not struck by Karen Reed's vehicle, period. And that is yet another fact that establishes reasonable doubt and should put an end to this case. So instead of calling the architects witnesses they had available to them, the Commonwealth chose to introduce you to Trooper Joe Paul. You'll remember his testimony. I think I'm being kind when I say that Trooper Paul's analysis lacks credibility. Trooper Paul lacks the experience, the education, the training, the background, and the knowledge to not only render opinions on these issues, but to even understand the issues themselves. He makes the absurd claim that John was hit on the elbow area of his arm by a taillight. He was spun to the left in a pirouette. His arm stayed on the light long enough for the shards of plastic.
Good post, Lauren. They should list all the reasonable doubts in the closing. I love it.
To explode around him, scratching his arm, even though he was wearing long sleeves, then projecting him 30 feet to the left, but not before making a stop to hit his head on either the curb or the pavement, before coming to his final resting place with his unbroken phone tucked neatly under his body. It's nonsensical. It borders on laughable. Compare that testimony to Dr. Dan Wolf and Dr. Andrew Rentschler. Both PhDs in engineering, both top of their field in accident reconstruction, both published peer review articles on the issues. Both men are highly sought after by the likes of national sports leagues and the United States Department of Defense. And these men are unrivaled in accident reconstruction. What did Dr. Rentschler say before he left the stand? This was even under cross-examination. He said that the physics and the science don't lie. His words were, you can't deny the science and the physics. John wasn't hit by that car, period. The Commonwealth cannot explain John O'Keefe's injuries. They can't explain his head wound. How did he get the head wound if he landed on snow-covered grass and dirt? And by the way, before Mr. Lally gets up and says it, because I know he's going to, there is zero evidence before you, zero, that cold grass and dirt turns into ice or turns into...
Tara, thank you so much. 5 new members just joined the Go Squad. You have access to all the members-only content. How to get to that? You just click on LTL Media. You come to my homepage and just scroll all the way to the bottom. I try to do a members-only like every 2 weeks or once every month, where it's more of an open forum. I just hang out for a couple hours, and you can all we can just do whatever. It's fun. It's like a hangout, and I really like doing it. So thank you. Thanks for coming in, new members.
Into concrete, zero. They can't explain the injury above his right eye, that laceration. They can't explain his nose. They haven't even tried to. They can't explain the injury to his tongue, the laceration on his tongue. They cannot explain the injuries to his back, to the back of his hands, the bruises, and certainly they cannot explain the injuries to his right arm. But maybe most importantly, they cannot and haven't even tried to explain the lack of injuries on John's body from the neck down.
True.
Nothing. He was pristine. Not a bump, not a bruise, not a fracture, not a broken bone.
Nope.
Nothing to suggest that he was hit by a 7,000-pound SUV going 25 miles per hour.
It's very
And what of
true.
that right arm? According to the Commonwealth's best and brightest, Trooper Paul, John absorbed the entirety of the collision, the whole collision, with that 3.5-ton SUV entirely with his right arm, launching him some 30 feet. But amazingly, the arm suffered no break, no fracture, and didn't even get a bruise. So how are those injuries properly explained? The evidence is simple. John got into an altercation. He was punched. He tried to defend himself by putting his hands up. He may have even scratched his own nose by putting his hands in front of his face to defend himself. His hands were bruised and covering up.
Five minutes, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. As he continued, he got hit, punch went through, and he fell to the ground, fracturing his skull. At some point during that altercation, the dog got a hold of him, and the dog was pulled away. Every single injury is answered. Every single injury is explained by that. Ladies and gentlemen, given what we know about the facts and the physical evidence in this case, the actual truth in this case, how did this happen? How did we end up here? We ended up here because of relationships, insider trading, playing the who you know game, and building a tall blue wall, which takes decades and generations. But the real question is it going to continue? With this festering malignancy that allows a lead detective and his supervisor to gloat and sneer while looking over naked pictures or looking for naked pictures of the woman that they've targeted, will that continue? And the answer should be not.
That's a good point. Hammer that one home too.
Michael Proctor is the lead investigator in this case, and much as the Commonwealth might try, they cannot distance themselves from the stench of him on this case and this investigation. Those secret group chats illustrate the quality and character of his investigation. Remind yourself how an quote unbiased and an objective investigator, someone who's supposed to be looking for facts. Ask yourself, how did he approach his job? Late at night, sitting there in his office, deviously looking for naked pictures of Karen Read and talking about her like she's a piece of meat, talking about her bodily functions, her medical conditions, calling her vile names. I don't even have it in me to repeat what he said about her. He reduced her to an object, and he went further by insulting her. He went further than insulting her, and he dehumanized her. And when he was done betraying that very humanity, he wished for her to commit suicide. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how you frame someone. That's how you dehumanize someone so viciously that you can just pin it on the girl and cover for the homeowner because he's a Boston cop. That's how you rip a person's life apart and sleep like a baby while doing it. And then further that by saying, I hope she kills herself. Ladies and gentlemen, I just began the discussion this afternoon or this morning with a quote about the truth. And I did that because that's what this case is about, top to bottom, tip to tail. It's about the truth, not hiding it or concealing it, but exposing the truth. The truth is immutable. It's not a feeling. It's not a whim. It's unflinching, it's unchanging, and it's everlasting. That's why the law is steady. That's why it's not captive to the whims of people drunk with power who think they're above the law, who think they're above scrutiny. That's why you stand as the guardian of justice and the protector of justice. The law demands the very integrity that Trooper Proctor and his investigation lacks, and it requires that you cannot convict Karen Read unless the Commonwealth has met its incredibly high burden to prove every element beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. And a moral certainty is defined as the highest degree of certainty possible in matters related to human affairs. It's the highest degree possible in your life. That's the level of certainty. And I'll leave you with this. You have the most powerful tool known to American jurisprudence because you have your vote. No one can take that away from you. Not me, not the Commonwealth, not the court. You may not have asked to be here, but each of you have given something very special of yourselves. You've agreed to do that, which is the highest calling a citizen can answer in any way. You've agreed to give your community your best. And my question to you is, what will you do with this moment? Ignore the lies and the manipulations, the misogyny, the bias, the lack of evidence? Could you ever do that? Would you ever do that? Or will you say with your verdict, I see the truth and I will not ever look the other way? When you stare the truth down, you'll see that the Commonwealth has not proven this case beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty, not even close. Ladies and gentlemen, Karen Read is innocent. Do justice and find her not guilty.
Such a good close.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson.
He's so good. He's so good. So good. And, we're 4 days away until jury selection is going to start. And we kick off Karen Read 2.0. And it's going to be a wild one. It's going to be a wild. But I'm waiting. I'm anticipating the mouth-dropping moments from the defense because I feel like they're going to have a few of them. I look at the Proctor texts for me was mouth-dropping. The Brian Higgins testimony when his lawyer gets up at the end, that was mouth-dropping. We hear about the butt dials, but there's so much stuff. And I think there's going to be more. I think there's going to be more that comes out, a lot more discovery that's going to come out. And I'm just anticipating it. And I can't wait to see, because I think they're going to have a lot more going on in this case. Let me do this. We'll end with a little bit of humor tonight. This mayor, this video came across my feed a couple of days ago, and I just can't get enough of it because it reminds me of a skit that would be in The Office. This is true life, and we're talking about a mayor. He's actually not going to run again. In February, he made an announcement he's not going to run again. This guy's been in power since 2017. His name is Alan Simon, and he's a mayor out of Spring Valley. And I want to show he had a meeting with trustees, and this was 3 years ago, but I got to show this to everybody. It's like funny. I think it's hilarious, but the guy's a piece of shit. I mean, obvious piece of shit. And he fucking treats everybody like this. Let's end with this. This is fucking wild. And again, this is with trustees. It's a meeting. It's a town meeting.
Do you think that this is a
You don't like it?
No, I don't like
Go have your own goddamn meeting. I'm finished.
What happened?
No, I am
What
finished.
hap-
I am sick and tired of you
I have-
assholes.
I have-
I have had enough. You
What-
can go to hell.
what did I
You
do?
have a fucking question on everything I do. Shove it up your ass.
What did I do
No,
wrong?
I have had enough. Goodbye. I'm not
What
going
did
to
I do
any
wrong?
goddamn meeting.
What did I do wrong?
Oh,
Explain.
you're a prick. That's what you did wrong. And I have no idea how you got that way. Go examine everybody else. But I'm finished. I've had enough of you and your bullshit. I don't want to go to any more fucking meetings. I've had enough. Fuck it. I've had enough. I cannot deal with this shit. All I get from you guys is bullshit. Bullshit, bullshit. I'm going to move this fucking thing along, and you guys don't want to do it. Fuck you. And that's official. You can go to hell. I don't give a shit what you do, how you do it, or how you vote from now on. Shove it up your ass.
I like how he goes, fuck you, and he made it official. And he goes, and that's official.
Did you film that? Thank you.
This guy's such a piece of shit, though. He's such a piece. It's like so much laughable. He's such a piece of fucking shit. And he comes back. Watch. He comes back.
So we'll have a meeting at 8 if we have a quorum.
Yeah, Deputy Clerk, please make note that we don't have a quorum anymore because one of the members left.
It's already been noted. Thank you very much.
Look at this. Like, he's still going.
Technically, you're still in executive session because we didn't take a vote to leave executive session. Right?
So does that mean I continue with?
No, I don't. I don't have anything I want to get done. I give a shit less.
This guy is the biggest piece of shit, man.
Goodbye.
He says goodbye. It reminds me of like I thought it was like a skit when I first saw it.
I would love it if someone here understands whether any of the trustees, including myself, have done anything wrong, asked any wrong questions. Have I done anything wrong in your opinion?
I
Have I asked
honestly
something
can't
wrong?
say you did anything wrong.
Okay, you only ask for an honest answer.
All right, Spring Valley, New York. I'm gonna. Do you want to see one more? I'll play one more, and then we'll head out. I gotta play more of this fucking guy. So apparently, that rant happens, and then they send a reporter over to get the story. Oh, wait for this one. This guy's fucking priceless, and he's got a history of just doing this. Fuck you, and that's official. I love it.
Team exclusive.
Here we
Students,
go.
Parents and staff raising concerns after a Spring Valley resource officer was let go.
And today, when investigative reporter Sarah Wallace went to confront the mayor about why he had the officer removed, this is what happened.
We have a right to ask
You
him.
should please leave. This is my private office.
Would you like to come out and talk to us outside?
No.
Now, the camera is kept rolling as the mayor ranted to Sarah. She's live at Village Hall this afternoon with all of the new developments to walk us through this. Sarah.
Well, and Natalie, David, the latest dust-up indeed involves Mayor Alan Simon. Law enforcement sources are telling us that he actually threatened to suspend the police chief after we asked questions because the police chief wouldn't arrest us. But the bigger issue potentially impacts school safety.
This is my private office.
Would you like to come out and talk to us outside?
No.
Okay. Did you tell us why you were?
And if the guy has the camera, take the camera. They're trespassing.
Well, you can't take the camera, but we will.
I can do what I want to do. Out.
Okay.
Now there it is right there. This guy, the fucking entitlement in this guy. That's the line, right? I can do whatever I want to do. This guy's such a piece of shit.
Out of my office.
Sure. Spring Valley Mayor Alan Simon furious as I tried to ask him about his latest controversial decision to remove the longtime and beloved school resource police officer Kwesi Evelyn from Spring Valley High School.
There are some students who don't have fathers. He is a father figure to them. He encourages the students. He pushes them, be the best you can be.
How worried are you about safety?
I'm very worried.
The police chief told us the position was abolished by the mayor. There are still civilian guards, but Evelyn's disappearance came as a shock to parents on this first day of school.
It wasn't somebody who was just coming to be like, oh, this is a job. You understand? It was not just a job for him. He treated these kids like they were his kids. So I am very concerned about the safety here because when fights break out, he's the one who's there to cut it out.
In April of 2022, when a student was stabbed in the school parking lot, it was Officer Evelyn who applied a tourniquet. Law enforcement sources tell the I-Team that Evelyn, who was back on street patrol today, had refused Mayor Simon's orders to report to him weekly on the behavior of certain school officials. The mayor refusing to answer our questions about that.
Do you want to talk about why you eliminated the school resource officer position and endangered
I'm sorry, I
potential
can't. It's a
students?
personnel matter.
Really?
Really.
Okay.
Goodbye. Good luck.
A few minutes after that, the mayor summoned the police chief into his office. We were later told by law enforcement sources Simon wanted us arrested. That didn't happen. Back at Spring Valley High School, the focus is on Officer Evelyn.
Your message to the mayor.
Well, my message to the mayor would be to bring Officer Evelyn back.
You released a man who is a big authority in the school, and we want answers, and we want them now.
A school district spokesman told us they are hoping that the matter can be resolved quickly because consistency with school resource officers is absolutely critical. The Rockland County Police Chiefs Association told us they firmly stand behind the police chief here, that if there is an effort to suspend him, it will be a violation of the Police Act. And then the ultimate question, will the district attorney's office or the AG's office begin an investigation into those claims that the mayor apparently tried to pressure an officer to spy on school officials? Live from Spring Valley, Sarah Wallace, News 4 New York.
Guy's such a piece of shit. Like, he's such a piece of shit, but you just gotta laugh. Imagine dealing with that. Holy shit. And you think Canton has problems on their fucking select board. I like, he goes, and fuck you, and that's official. Oh, I love it. Oh, we needed a little humor at the end of this. Ah, I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, everybody. It's late. I got to go. I got to get out of here. I appreciate everybody hanging out. We had a pretty packed house all night long. Good to go over the defense opening statement and the closing argument. You got to review this stuff. You got to look at it. We got to talk about it. And I think we did a great job of it tonight. And I appreciate the interactive chat on all this. And just really, you know, listening to the beginning of the show and the support that I got there and kind of just getting my point out. And I'm just going to put this out. Attorney Mark Betterow is welcome here on LTL anytime he wants, and we'll turn off all the super chats. I just want him over here as the amazing human being that he is to give back to this community and share his knowledge and his expertise and break all this shit down for us, all the craziness here. I will gladly host him any single time he wants to come here. No donations. And I already told Mark, if you want to come back, no donations. So maybe we'll do this. We'll just clip Karen's link at the top of the chat. And if you want to donate to her, we'll do that. Maybe we can agree on that. But Mark Betterow is welcome on this channel. We'll have him back here soon. And we'll go through all this. All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for your time, your dedication, your love for the channel. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate all the support tonight. Welcome in all the new members. And if you haven't subscribed, please do comment after this video. It helps get it out in the YouTube algorithm. I just want to let everybody know what I've been doing lately is on Thursdays, some of my shows that have done really well during the week, I'm pulling those down, clipping them, and re-uploading them. And the reason I do that is, yes, you all see them, but when you re-upload sometimes, it'll reach out to a further audience. So we'll get in some new subscribers. And that's the point of the channel, building the subscriber base, building up those views, getting people's eyes on this channel. That's why I'm here. I'm here for the long game. And we're getting very close to getting into that 40,000 club. I can't wait. And I can't do that without all of you. So thank you all so much again being here. I'm glad that we could go through go through all of this tonight and have a few laughs at the end. And I love all of you. I love all of you. And no bad blood. We're good. We're over it. We're done. We move on to bigger and better things. I'm going to hit the outro. Good night, everybody. Have a wonderful Friday night. And me and Lauren will be back on Sunday morning with a treat for all of you. Tune in. I think we're going to start at 9 or 10 in the morning, 9:30 or 10 in the morning. Set your reminders, and I'll see everybody soon. Talk to you later. Peace.